there. That is amazing.
Hello, ladies and I asked you twice. Now you ready to go?
I didn't consent.
I don't think
I know.
I didn't even hear you.
I didn't even.
But there's
know
so many times where I do that, and you guys are like, "Yeah, okay, come on, let's go." And it's like, well, you know, fuck you.
Come on, Travis, let's go.
Welcome.
What are you doing?
Welcome to the. I'm getting the live stream going. Welcome to the 116th episode of the GeekVerse podcast. Welcome to this madhouse that's already started. I'm the living planet, Travis Snail.
I'm the ego, Kyle Smith.
That's mine too.
I'm the Galaxy Man, Dylan Musk.
I'm the rocket field raccoon, Taylor Field.
Okay.
I'm the Cosmic Duke, Tyler Briggs.
Juke. Did you say it with a J?
No,
It sounded like a J.
I think you're the only
I
one.
realized he said Duke, but it sounded like he pronounced it with like a J and then
I think
a
you're
D.
the only one.
Not good enough for Dylan Musk, apparently.
Nope, I don't care.
Only the highest pronunciation skills on the GeekVerse podcast.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't guessed by our nicknames, if you haven't guessed by the fucking title that's down below, finally, we're here to talk about, maybe, for some people, the most anticipated film of the year. At least one of the most anticipated. You know, you got your Logans, you got your Last Jedi, you got your Cars 3, you know, things like that.
Isn't it Cars 4
Fate
now?
of the Furious.
3, yeah, Fate of the Furious. But I say this is up there in that top 5.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Well,
We should talk about that at the end of the cast and just our sign off. But we're here to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Very anticipated movie. How this works is we're going to do a little overall rating with the group. Give some of our thoughts, pros, cons. We're going to talk about that. And then when we feel the need to jump into spoilers, we'll let you know. So if you haven't seen it, you can watch this portion and then come back later. If you have seen the movie, then you're all good. Watch the whole way through because I think this is going to be a fun one. So Tyler Briggs starts off. Overall, what did you think of this newest film in the MCU, the Marvel Universe, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2?
Great film.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, just a fantastic
Smart.
film. Very smart film.
Yeah.
Good decision by Marvel. Visually blew me away. It's just phenomenal. Very aesthetically pleasing. Easy on the eyes. And for a 3D film, not that bad. Like the 3D, I didn't notice
it got to me by the end. Like I had a little
Really?
bit of a headache.
It was like one of the films that
it.
didn't like. There are films where it's like
Except for
really
Bad,
3D heavy.
What's that?
Yeah.
And this one was like very
Better.
light on the 3D stuff. Like it was very, very light. But
Two
yeah,
times.
great time, great film. Drax was phenomenal throughout the film. I think. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
He's your
I don't know where to
standout?
go for that.
That's enough.
So this is
Yeah.
your overall, anyways.
Overall, great time. You should go see it.
Mm-hmm. Taylor Field.
You know, I felt like we had our own collection of Guardians of the GeekVerse going into the theater here to watch this movie.
That was
I
good.
were like,
I
that
like
sounds
that.
so cool, dude.
No,
Sounded cooler in my head.
I liked it. I think it was really
We're gonna
cool.
take a pause and limit this cast down to 4 people and get rid of one of the other Guardians of the Geekverse.
It was decent.
I absolutely love the movie. I think it was really, really good. Had its moments. I think, you know,
At its
compared-
moments.
Definitely had
Great
its
movie,
moments.
very good, had its moments.
Tell the shit, but it had its moments.
Yeah, same way I was listening to a cast recently for the editing purposes, and you said you loved a movie, but you gave it 7 out of 10. A 7 out of 10 love. Continue.
You have to tell me what that movie was later.
What? Who
Assassin's
knows?
Creed.
Assassin's Creed.
Could have been any of them.
It could have been any of them.
You know,
It's probably every one of them.
compared to the first movie, like I loved how it, like the first one was introduction. This one, it focused on the characters a bit more individually and everything. I love that. I thought it was great. They tackled that perfectly because most of the time I was wondering how are they gonna approach the characters, but they handled it great. I was not disappointed.
Taylor just stays up late at night wondering how are they going to approach
Every
the
night,
characters
Travis.
in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Now you got to worry about Volume 3 this whole
I'm
time.
already tormented. Trying to couldn't get a grip.
Dylan.
That's all you have to say?
Yeah.
Alright.
Dylan Moss.
You know, I think I'm just like, I don't know why I'm shocked, but I'm shocked at how Marvel is able to like keep making these phenomenal movies. Like,
I thought you didn't like it as much because the way you're reacting, like, I got a sense that Dylan was not that you didn't like, but just disappointed. I'm like, I'm preparing myself, and then a shock.
Yeah, I don't know. I love this movie. I think it goes back to like how Civil War, every character got their moment somehow, and it seems like unbelievable because there were so many characters that everyone had their moment. In this movie, it was the same thing but elevated because there wasn't as many characters, so there's more time to go around. And I felt like each one of them got their own like emotional scenes and different moments with like interactions between like different sets of characters, so you got to see a good mix.
Yeah.
We didn't see absolutely every combination. Obviously, that's impossible. But for the sake of this movie, I think they did a really good job in that regard. Like characters like Drax, I was going in from the trailers and I was like, it's kind of funny, but like I don't know how much I'm gonna like this guy. But by the end, I love him, and I think the only character for me that was like not as great as he could have been was actually Star-Lord. And we'll get into that later, but that was the one character for me that was not necessarily let down, but I maybe wanted more, but I think it's because the first movie, he was like the main guy, and obviously they're a team, but he kind of comes across as like the star, the main guy that they're trying to get across. But in this movie, it seemed like he took like a back seat in that regard.
Yeah, I'll say this is not like a non-spoiler. I feel like there's a portion of the movie where he's kind of gone. Like, it's not even a spoiler thing. It's just like they're going around showing different things in the movie, and it feels like he's just kind of... It's kind of very much like in BVS when Superman is just kind of gone for a while, and you're like, where's Superman, And he's like, they show him here and there, but it's like... I can kind of agree with you there.
It didn't really disappoint me. Like, at first... Or like maybe the first half an hour or so, I didn't know how I was going to feel about it, but like by the end, you could tell that was their goal. I don't know. At least that came across to me that way. Is that it was supposed to be more about the team, and like I feel like Rocket had more screen time than him in this movie. Like I wouldn't be surprised. And then even like Rocket had like the very final scene before it cuts to black. So I think it took some like different directions than I was anticipating. But without a doubt in my mind, this is way better than the first one. So I love this movie.
On that note of Star-Lord not getting a lot of time, do you think that's because, without really spoiling, like, they showcase each character like with other characters, and he was just kind of to his lonesome quite a bit? All the other characters
he still had time. I think it was just like more like toward the end of the movie, maybe.
Yeah, and I think like with non-spoiler, like I think his plot point was more about him. Like, it's not a spoiler. Kurt Russell's dad's in it, and that's a big part of the movie. And I think it's because his adventures...
You said that fast sounds like Kurt Russell's dad was in the movie?
Him too. No. I feel like his storyline is so much more just Peter Quill and centric to him, where the other people are doing other stuff. They're interacting with maybe like other villains or other characters we've met before. So like, I kind of see that. I think I'm kind of the same thing as you, where I don't think it's a negative for me, but I definitely feel like it's not his journey like the first one. The first one, I feel like he is kind of a guide through it, but this really feels like this is really about the whole group. Like, I hate to compare it to that, but it feels very much like Fast and Furious, where it's not just about Vin Diesel anymore. It's about all of them, right? Yeah. And they even dropped the "we're family" line in this. Yeah. So it's like, it did feel more about like it's an ensemble more than it's like Peter Quill and the Guardians, right? So, yeah.
Are you good?
Go ahead.
Sweet. I think it was really good overall. I enjoyed the movie. Like Tyler said, it was very aesthetically pleasing. It was really cool. All the special effects was really neat to see. Definitely up there with Doctor Strange, and we watched that as well too. It's just cool to see where all these worlds are going, and seeing what they're doing with the costumes and everything as well too. But still, like, I didn't have any problems with the films. I thought it was a lot of fun, very enjoyable. For me, I still think I like the first one better than the second one. But still, overall, it was a great movie, and Marvel just does not disappoint.
Well, share your one your one problem with it, because it's not spoiler. It wasn't a problem, but you said one thing in the car.
Oh, so I said
this isn't a spoiler.
This isn't a spoiler. For me, I thought Drax had a lot of one-liners, and it was almost the same one-liners over and over again. And, like, don't get me wrong, really funny, still liked it, enjoyed it.
This movie.
I hate it.
1 out of 10.
1 out of 10. But it's still, like, it didn't take me out of it, but it's just something that I picked up. It was like, okay, like, I get, like, he's just using these jokes, and I felt like they were kind of just the same jokes of just mocking at people's stupidity.
It wasn't as natural for you as the first time?
It wasn't as natural.
Do you think that has something to do with a lot of these jokes were in various trailers, since you've seen them before?
Well, I guess it's not... I feel like kind of, maybe, but even at the same time, there's still jokes that we didn't really hear in the trailers before that were still in there. That
a little one-dimensional in that regard.
They just felt like recycled jokes just under different contexts.
Yeah.
I forgot
I
a couple.
See that,
like, yeah.
I don't know. I can't say that disappointed me, but I feel like looking back, I can see where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, like as a mini one, I think I found it much more flowing than you did, but there were a couple times where in the very first Guardians I found there was no times that took me out, and the spoilers go to it. I think there was maybe one or two, maybe just one, but a couple comedy moments that stuck out for me. That was like, oh, they're kind of really going for that, which is fine. This is a comedic movie. Where the first one, I never felt like that. Where there was a couple times in this one, which we'll get into later, I was like, that sticks out, but it wasn't a big enough calm where it's like, oh, this takes it down a bunch. It was just like, okay, like that stuck out. Are you done?
Yeah, no, I'm just agreeing with you as well.
He said the same thing to you. Why is it offensive I say it? No, so I've been harping about this for months, so this is for new people, because when we do reviews, lots of new people listen. Love Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. We put it, and we did rank every comic film. We ranked it 3rd of all time, only behind Dark Knight and Civil War. So, like, it's high up there, and it's even debatable. People can make a case for it being the greatest, and I could understand. And I was always like, with this, even before I saw the trailers, and when we saw the trailers, I'm like, oh, it looks great. It looks like it's Guardians. But there's so much, like, when Avengers happened and, like, the Dark Knight happened, the things that follow up, they could be good or great, but they never reach that peak of the first one. And that's why I really worried about this, was that the first one's such lightning in a bottle that you could never really capture that again. And I actually hadn't, lots of times I read or listen or watch reviews. I did a couple, but most of them I heard were from fans and people like, we have a couple of UK fans and they had seen it a week before. Lucky bastards. I hate you, Marvel, dude. And like, they had seen it a week before and I'd heard very mixed of like, no one was saying it was bad, but lots of people said like, oh, you know, it's maybe they're trying to be too funny or it doesn't feel like there's much of a story. And then I've heard people say, oh, it's their favorite Marvel film. So I've heard very back and forth and everything like this. So I had set my expectations. Unlike Avengers 2, I'd said, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to go in for a good time. And yeah, I'm on the same boat as you do. I think it's as good, if not, I like it more than the first one. And I didn't think that was going to. Maybe that's because I set my expectations. But like, I did not think that was going to be possible, you know? And that's why, for me, when I was watching, I was like, oh, I don't really understand anybody's super complaints and whatnot. Because for me, it's not to the same quality. But when I was watching it, it felt not the same story order, but it kind of felt like Pulp Fiction in a way. In Pulp Fiction is like, they all have like their semi like little story. So it's like, these characters off doing this, and these characters off doing this, these characters, and at the end it kind of all makes sense, they all come together, and there's certain elements that come back. And it wasn't the same way where it's told where it's like, oh, this is the end of the movie, this is the beginning. It was just the how they handle the characters and certain storylines. And I could see some people, the first Guardians to me feels like it has one main central story, where this feels like a bunch of stories that come together. And I could see why people might not like that. They might feel it's a little like jumbled. But for me, I really liked it because at the end of the day, the story was good enough where the thing that mattered the most was the characters and spending more time with them, and they actually learned more about them. That's the thing so many sequels do a bad job, is they just rinse and repeat, and you don't really feel like you've learned anything. Where I feel like I learned more about Rocket, I learned more about Drax, I learned more about Yondu, I learned about Mantis. You know, even Nebula, I've learned a lot about. You know, like for me, the story, I actually like the story, so that's not a problem. But for me, even if I didn't, the character work in it was so good that that's why I really enjoyed it. It's the same way as lots of people put like Avengers or Winter Soldier over Civil War. But the reason I like Civil War is because there's so much character work in there. Yeah. And it's not about the big action set piece. Because that's one thing I heard. It's a minor spoiler, but people are like, oh, well, Drax only fights once in the movie. And I was like, okay, that was in my mind. I heard that. And when I saw the movie, it's like, I didn't really care. Because the moments Drax was in the movie, I found those better than him swinging a sword around. You know, like him talking, whether it's emotional or comedic scenes. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I thought I was gonna be disappointed with this movie a lot. And damn, between this, Logan, Lego Batman, we're on a roll this year. Like, this is not like last year where it's like we got so like, and we still have so many movies coming up. So is there anything anyone wants to say non-spoiler before we jump into?
I have a point off yours, but I think it is spoiler territory, so we'll leave it for a bit.
So we'll jump into spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, this is your last chance. 3, 2, 1. Superman dies. He's dead. No.
He dies and he's dead. A real shock to us all.
2 over, yeah.
Well, in BBS he died, but he's not dead. Yeah, so, I mean, it's kind of sketchy.
What's your point now?
What I was going to say is, like, the storylines, like, the emotional scenes, like, you know, obviously Drax and his family, and then Gamora and, like, her weird family situation. Peter, I guess, like, his family thing, too, with his dad and stuff like that. Like, those are all things that they brought up in the first movie. And, you know, there is, like, emotional scenes there, but they almost seem like, just to give you a little bit of backstory, they don't really seem like they're intended to be, like, really emotional scenes. But in this movie, they go into those storylines, like,
and you actually get the backstory. Surface level.
Yeah. And, like, obviously the first one was more just, like, action-y and more fun, just jokes and stuff like that. And this movie, obviously it had that too, but it took those storylines from the first one of, like, each character and their backstory and just kind of elevated them and like, really expanded on them so you actually understand, like, more of, like, the inner workings.
They really fleshed them out a lot, I think.
For sure.
So.
Yeah. Well, Tyler, we want to start just with story or overall any spoiler things, because we'll do some story notes. We'll go to cast and stuff like that, because we don't need to talk about every single cast person because we've talked about them before.
Yeah.
But what did you think about the story overall? So story is, I guess you've seen it, but pretty much one story is Peter and his gang are going off to find out more about Peter's dad and if this is real, and the other gang is fixing the ship and then get taken prisoners. It's very Empire Strikes Back of Star Wars, where it's like we've taken all these characters and we've split them up and they're doing their own separate thing. So what did you think about the story overall? And I guess even compared to the first one.
I think the main sort of plot line of Peter finding things out about his dad, and then obviously his dad ended up being the big villain at the end.
Did anyone else see that coming? I felt I did, because I felt he was super shady when we met him.
Everything seemed too nice. At the start when they first met him, I didn't think so, but once they got to the planet, I was like, this is too good.
Oh, see, I was the
I
reverse.
think I got the feeling when they showed because those golden people, I like just from the trailers,
Sovereign.
we talked about them
They
being
made it seem like
the
they
villains.
were the...
But yeah, right off the beginning of the movie, that scene with them, to me, it didn't feel like these were gonna be the big bad guys to fight at the end of the movie. They just, I don't know if they didn't seem grand enough or something. They seemed they were really cool looking, but they were a little lame.
And they kept bringing them up, and
they kept popping
up in the film. So
obviously they're there
like
until
they're
the
a
very
bigger
end
villain,
scene,
but
essentially.
Yeah, and they'll be important down the line. So so you were saying about
I'd say the main plot line, sort of following Peter Quill and his father. I felt that was maybe the weakest point in the film.
Oh, really? Okay.
I thought it was honestly a little, not super predictable, but it you could see it coming once you sort of get 30 minutes, 45 minutes into the film. And then I just found, as you guys pointed out earlier, that Peter didn't have as much screen time behind it, and it just his progression through that plot line seemed kind of weak, I guess. I felt like he just kind of blindly followed it along, and which, given his character, kind of makes sense how he wants to learn more about his father.
At the start he didn't, though, because remember, Gamora had to talk him into it, because at first he's like, this seems shady, let's not do this, and she's like, well, there's a chance, right? So he wasn't initially like, oh, let's do this. I do have one problem, but I'll wait for a little bit till we get to it with that, but it was one thing with Quill. It's legitimately, as of right now, but only small negative with the film.
What is that? Let's go into it
So,
right
okay, so major spoilers, like I said, this is your last chance. So at the end, when he reveals his big plan of it's a classic villain want to destroy the world thing, but for me, it was almost very similar to Mads and Doctor Strange. It was I need to save this world, but in order to do that, I gotta destroy it. And I liked his reasoning of, hey, this world could be so much bigger, but we gotta get rid of, out with the old, in with the new. And I like that. It wasn't just I was really worried he was gonna be like, I need to kill everyone so I can live forever. And I was like, okay, I get it, but that's kind of lame. And I thought that's where we were going, but that didn't happen. So there's that moment where Star-Lord, he sees all these planets, right, in his eyes and everything like that. And it's very cool. My problem with it was Kurt Russell, or Ego, is explaining his plan and everything like that, and it's very nice, and then he gets into the I went around the world, and I was procreating, everything like this, and met all these ladies. And then he talks about pretty much killing the kids, and he even says, they didn't feel pain, but, I killed them. And then he says, to build it, we gotta destroy it. And he's saying all these things, and Quill's still in that state of mind. And then when he says, I really loved your mother, but I had to put the tumor in her head, I hated that, because does that mean if he didn't say that, Quill's still going to go along with it? I didn't like that. I didn't like that was the turn of... I wish he would have turned right when he said, I had to kill the kids. And then he could have been saying all this bad shit while he snapped
my problem with that was actually a little bit different in that, as soon as he said, I put the tumor in your mother, obviously Quill was mad and started shooting him. And then I felt like him just giving up on Peter and just killing him now. I felt like that didn't make sense.
He was gonna
use his energy
battery.
I guess so. Yeah. I don't know. I felt like he could have tried convincing him, convincing him more rather than just giving up there. I don't know.
See, I didn't have a problem with that because I just felt he was so fed up with all these other people.
To me, it just seemed like too quick of a jump, maybe.
Fair enough, and it did feel like a really quick jump to Peter. Kind of felt like right away he uber hated him, which was fine because he killed his mom. But I didn't like. For me, that's what I didn't like. I didn't like that it took his mom dying. I think it could have been a collection of things. Because, if he didn't say that, would he have still been going along with it? Because his eyes were... He was still in this trance, right?
Yeah, and he seemed like he was agreeing with everything his father was doing.
Yeah, he's
because
like,
of the trance, obviously, but...
But that's what wasn't clear for me.
I feel like that's what takes him out of that trance, though, was...
True, and that's I'm kind of hoping, but it was a little off.
They even set that up, in the first movie, in that, that's Peter's deepest love, I guess you could say, and like that's everything. Like his the movie, how he's just going through listening to this music. Like the music is from his mom. Like
his mom's
all of it goes back to that.
Yeah.
So
I think that would be like the trigger. That's like you hear that just one magic word, and that's not what you're expecting, and that's what flips you.
And maybe I just didn't like. Also, I didn't feel the need that Kurt Russell had to give her the tumor as well. I would have liked it better if he would have just said, "Hey, I killed all your brothers and sisters, and I'm gonna destroy all these planets that have people on." I feel like that would have been motivation enough. But then to hit in with I think it was a little too far for him to be like, "Oh, and I killed your mom," and it's just like
it almost seems like it was there as like, okay, this for the viewers. This is why.
People that are like eating popcorn and maybe checking their phone. It's like, oh, he killed his mom. Like I felt like the setup for the villain was good enough, and then they did that one extra thing.
Yeah.
For me, it didn't. It's the thing of like when there's so much good stuff, you give a pass, and some people might say that like, oh, you nitpick stuff, like even like Suicide Squad. But for me, it's like when the good stuff or the big stuff isn't good, and the little stuff, it's just this blend. And for me, that was the only thing that bugged me a little in this movie was that part with Peter.
Mm-hmm.
It felt that whole scene kind of felt very strange. I felt the beginning was good, and I felt the end, but I felt that portion was a little strange. I love his little gallery of showing him, like, making love to all these different people around the world. And, like, Kurt Russell, I loved how, like, he legitimately looked like young Kurt Russell at the beginning of the movie. Like, if you've seen, like, Escape from New York, like, it didn't even look like CGI. He just looked young again, and it was crazy. And I liked the setup, but, like, for me, I thought he was shady right away. And then I came around, and I was like, oh, no, this is bad. The second Mantis was kind of, like, bumbling around. That kind of, like, gave it away. But, like, I liked the villain overall, and I think they are improving with their villains. If you look at their past ones, you had Zemo in Civil War, and you had Caecilius in Doctor Strange. I feel like they are working on it, because I don't think this is a one-note villain, which they've had before, and I think he's much more layered. Because I like that at the end of the day, he still says that he loved her a lot, right? The only reason he actually killed her was just because he didn't
stop himself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I liked it wasn't just like, oh, I was really worried he was gonna be like, and I was just using her. Like I was like, oh no. So I like it could have been really one-note villain, but I think they gave him some level and whatnot. Taylor, what do you think about? Because you've been quite about
story.
No, the story with the. Or are you not done?
I feel like
Okay, continue.
I don't want to shut down the flow, but
you can't talk.
Just like the thing about me saying like it's the weak point of the film, it was still a phenomenal film, and that doesn't mean it's like it was bad.
Yeah,
it's just it didn't boggle me as much as the rest of the film, I guess. And then so for me, obviously, the rest of the story with all the side plots was like what really got me, in the characters, where I think is the strongest part. And the plot was just kind of like a device to bring them all around and move them around the universe and then bring them all together. And the actual story, like the plot itself, wasn't super compelling, but the characters' involvement with it was sort of what kept me in it.
Taylor, you've been quiet.
Storyline, as I said before, like with the characters and then pairing up certain characters with each other, I really like that. Like they put Gamora and Nebula together because they both had they could relate to each other, and then they put Yondu and Rocket together. And I love that. And then I liked how they put Drax and Mantis together, because Drax, he's so literal with his emotions, and then you have Mantis who's so empathetic with emotions. And I thought that was really cool to flesh out these new characters that we didn't really get to really know a lot of, but at the same time, pairing them with the original characters, it helped to flesh them out a bit more. So that was good. And then storyline wise, I didn't see Kurt Russell coming at all, like as being the villain.
He was announced for the movie. So
I knew that much.
He was in the trailers,
but I didn't know he was the villain. Like that totally threw me off. And when Mantis was like acting sketchy, I was like, okay, there's something not right here, but it can't be Kurt Russell. And then when Kurt Russell went bad, I'm like, oh no, he's bad.
What in that moment did you think would be bad then? If it wasn't Kurt Russell, Mantis was freaking out.
When Star-Lord's eyes turned, I'm like, oh, he's totally bad.
Star-Lord?
Yeah, when his eyes turned.
So you thought Star-Lord was bad?
No. When his eyes turned bad, I'm like, okay, this is either like he's giving Star-Lord more power. Yeah, I thought he was giving him power. And then when he's like, I killed all these kids, but his parents were like, oh, this guy's bad. He's got shenanigans and stuff.
Honestly, for a split second, when his eyes when Chris Pratt's eyes went all dark, I was like, is he gonna like fight them all? Like, is this what's gonna happen? Is this gonna be the final fight scene? Yeah. Like, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that thought did cross me too. I was like,
it didn't last for long.
I feel like he could have got bombed. I'm sorry, but I feel like I actually feel like because it's his heart and his leadership that's good. I feel like fighting skills, Quill's probably like the weakest one on the team, to be honest.
Well, to be fair, I didn't realize how strong Gamora and Drax are. Like they can jump really high,
humanly,
and
like
they can
inhuman, yeah.
Oh,
they can,
They can
some heavy
land
shit.
hard.
They can land hard.
They can hold
do the
onto each other.
superhero.
Yeah, they can hold on
really
to it.
well.
Yeah.
They have really good friendship skills and family skills.
Yeah.
On the note, when Kurt Russell said he was like a celestial, I thought that was pretty cool because then it made me think like flashbacks of the celestial head that was floating around in nowhere. I'm thinking like that's a pretty big comparison. You have this giant entity, and then you have this human half planet celestial. I just thought it was really cool. Like, what else kind of stuff are we gonna see to come? And then
A lot of stuff. Infinity War is gonna get fucking
One thing
weird.
I thought was really funny was when like he was initially showing like the showcase of his beginning, I guess, to Peter Quill, and it's just like that brain floating in space. I thought that was a metaphor. And then it's like you go to the center of the world and it's literally just a brain.
Literally, he was a brain.
Well, you know, there it is.
Yeah.
Brains are pretty efficient.
It's true. We'd be known to think of things.
Like planets.
Yeah, the Sovereign, is that what they're called?
Sovereign,
Yeah, I really didn't like them.
Oh,
Just-
I've heard that from a couple other people. It's tough for me. I have a bias. I like Aisha. Hashtag her. But like you, why didn't you like them?
Well, I thought it
Fucking
was off to a good start at the beginning when Chris Pratt was like flirting with them. I thought that was really funny, and then like I
That
thought,
was
okay,
good.
they seem kind of like decent people, like kind of weird but decent. And then,
Okay,
like,
wait, before you continue, is this you don't like them from a story aspect, or you just don't like them because they're bad characters? Because I feel like you're about...
story aspect.
Okay, because the way you're saying, like, oh, I really like them, they're good people, and then they turn their back.
It's like they did their job.
Yeah, really Rocket stole from them, so they're kind of in the right, you know?
Yeah, but you think, I don't know, they could do like a little bit better kind of treatment than just kill.
But that's the way the
That's
Sovereign
their-
is. You don't
yeah.
steal
But
from them.
I know, and that's
royalty.
why I let that slide. But the thing that
If
got
you
me is
stole,
just like,
if you stole the Queen's shoe, I don't think you're living, Taylor.
well, I think I will.
he's pretty sneaky. He
yeah,
has an
Huge
assassin's
democracy.
costume. so-
True.
It was just the part I thought it was humorous, but I didn't like how they were kind of going for that humor, I guess, with them as well, where the guy was doing such a great job, and they're like, "Oh, you suck," typical. Like, it made me laugh, but I thought this isn't really necessary. And then like when they were raging and stuff, like their video game consoles, I'm gonna call it, like this, it didn't feel like it was. It worked.
I
because-
guess I kind of agree because think about like what they did in this movie. They sent like a fleet of ships and it got destroyed, and they did that like 3 times, and that's all they did.
yeah.
They were like, I will agree that they were kind of lame. I think I like them enough because I see that their role in this movie is like just to set them up for like Guardians 3, like I don't know however long that is down the line.
Yeah, that or
and I
something
like
to do
them
with
enough in that
Avengers.
regard, but I will say in terms of like their impact on this movie in particular, they are kind of lame.
Mm-hmm.
They just
Yeah.
send those ships that
Oh.
that get destroyed, and then they do it like again and again.
See, I like them enough because they're kind of like, to me, they're like the stormtroopers. They're the cannon fodder. Like, these are the
So-
guys that are just going to get beat up all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that, depending on how the next movie handles them, will make my... I'm just at a... I quite liked them. So if the next movie handles them poorly, I like this because I feel like it's a good setup
Mhm.
for the future. I could agree with it being in the film kind of like tacked on, but I thought it was another thing. And it gave Rocket's like story... Like, it gave him a little story of he's learning that he couldn't be selfish, right? Like, that was, like, if you really look at it, the ship's getting destroyed, everything, you throw that all away, what the whole core of that plot line is just to show, hopefully Rocket will not be selfish, because look at what taking these batteries cause, right? Because all this damage, everything like that. They definitely are, like, a plot device of, like, we need the bad guys to shoot, or we need the Guardians to beat some people up, these guys. And none of them really die, because they're killing, like, computers, so it's, like, fun violence, you know?
You
but-
don't think they're gonna
like
they're gonna change that? Sorry.
No,
You don't think they're gonna change that with Rocket's personality, do you? Where he's not gonna be stealing? And
I
stuff?
think so
'Cause
now.
I think that was awesome when he's always going for the body parts that people have. I think that's a huge part of his character.
But I think so now because him doing that kind of accidentally helps leading the Yondu's death in a way, and multiple things. Whoa, ladies and gentlemen, we have a big storm. If you're watching live and we suddenly go dead,
There's
That's-
a chance we lose
that's-
power.
Yeah.
we won't actually be dead, but like the screen will go black.
yeah, exactly. You'll catch it.
Movie
in a
Pretty
minute.
much talking to ourselves.
Big storms here in Canada, but like I think
You can't just say in Canada. It's not all,
All
of
of
Canada.
Canada covered in one huge storm.
majority of our listeners are
You're
watching.
gonna make
are
people
American.
think like who've never been to Canada think that it's just like one small.
It's just
like,
storms and
1
snow.
acre.
It's the
Is
Watchers.
Canada.
Okay, they're
It's a
after-
blizzard. We have igloos. I'm really worried what's gonna happen.
Not the
I should bring my
Stormblades?
polar bear in soon.
The
He's
whole
getting
the whole country is
chilly.
just snow and ice, and we all live in 1 acre. So
No.
when there's a storm over all of Canada.
In Canada, it's not storm blizzards; it's Dairy Queen blizzards. So when there's
yes.
snow, it's just like, oh, it's cold, but it's really tasty. So, no, I think
Tidbits flying from the sky.
I think Rocket
Alright.
does
Hockey
need to.
pucks.
I think Rocket
Okay,
does.
whoa.
That would kill me. I think Rocket does need to change because then the point of that story means nothing. Him
Yeah.
taking the batteries and then him in the end being like, oh, and taking stupid batteries and him kind of admitting like, that was my fault. I'm sorry, guys. I let you down. If he can be a little rascally raccoon and say stuff and be an asshole, but he shouldn't do stuff that puts the team in peril anymore. Because then whatever he learned in this is null point, and it feels like then I would agree that then the whole Sovereign was a waste because it didn't teach.
He
Rocket
can still
anything.
be a trickster and a prankster and stuff.
Yeah.
And he can still take people's legs and like give them back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But he'll
The
do
whole
it.
eye-
He's gonna learn.
Not-
He's gonna wake up not knowing
Yeah.
where his eye is.
But he's not doing that as like a selfish prick.
Yeah.
As like a defense mechanism for his own insecurities, but as like to
Wow,
be a
Tyler's
fun guy
really
around
running
the
these.
Why do you?
I don't know. I just got attacked on.
Wow.
I also, oh, sorry.
You
Okay.
two are on a roll.
I wanted
today.
to throw in with that Rocket storyline there. I liked it was kind of they didn't really like make a big thing out of it. It's kind of subtle, but because when they were going through that asteroid field to start, and they were like both trying to take control of this ship, and they weren't working together, and ended up fucking them up. And then at the end, in like the final fight where Rocket was controlling the lasers and Peter was flying, it kind of showed the other side of that where
Unity.
they were working in unity, and there wasn't like a whole show, like they didn't show that off a lot.
It wasn't a cheesy moment where it's like, let's
Yeah.
work together.
They
Yes.
didn't like, yeah,
You know?
exactly. But you like, I just saw that parallel. I was like, right on, you know.
Yeah,
watching past some stuff,
And that's where,
feels
like,
good.
talking about the story, like what you talked about with and Dylan, the first one about the first one kind of laying the bricks, and this one kind of building the foundation. Like that's why I felt this was like the moments like that. They weren't in your face. They were.
Just
You
let
can't
it
see
slide.
the light.
Okay.
You can't, like
Maybe you
I
can-
screwed
can
up.
see
You
the
build the
light there.
foundation, then you lay the bricks. Is that what you were saying?
You build the bricks and then the foundation, apparently.
Yeah, I know. I screwed. That's how we do it in Canada.
You,
No,
you build the foundation and then just build the house.
Well, I mean, it's not efficient to lay the foundation and then build the bricks.
Anyways,
the bricks
continue.
are going to be built, and then you lay the foundation and the
This-
bricks on top of the
there's a
foundation.
storm in Canada. I'm really nervous, guys. Okay. No, I think it's just that the character motivation and the characters developing aren't huge in your face moments like that, like Nebula and Gamora hugging at the end. It could have been this big thing, but it's kind of a hug. They hug each other. Nebula pushes her off and then walks away. Like I feel they do big character moments, but very nice and subtly, and not that shoving your face like, oh, this is the
Yeah.
moment where you're supposed to be watching. They're developing. They're changing. You know,
They
like,
do it like it's real.
it
Like,
feels natural.
real. Yeah.
It's not that, and even Rocket just saying like, "Oh, I shouldn't have took the batteries." He didn't like do big speeches like, "I'm really sorry. This is my fault." He just like, "I shouldn't have took them. My bad."
Yeah.
Taylor, what were you saying
I
before?
was gonna
about-
say, like you say that what Rocket did led to Yondu's death, because
Well,
Yondu didn't have to accept that contract. He could have turned it down from the Sovereign. He didn't have to stay there at the end. Like he could have. There could have been a few.
but then take the Sovereign
alternatives.
completely out, then that whole Yondu doesn't even get involved in the story. So Yondu is just off on his own in a bar somewhere instead of dying, right?
Yeah, him taking the batteries sort of.
Yeah,
Made
that's
a
what I
bunch
mean.
of
So
things
he
happen.
takes that contract, and indirectly he gets involved with the Guardians, which is great because I love Yondu and he should be in the movie.
Oh.
But in Rocket's mind, if he doesn't do that, the Sovereign doesn't get involved, and they don't get Yondu.
But did he take that contract?
But it
fully
doesn't matter. I'm
knowing-
saying
The
with him
Sovereign
taking
wouldn't
the
be
battery,
chasing
there'd
the
be no
Guardians.
contract if he didn't take the
But
battery.
hear me out. I
No,
understand that.
your question.
No, I
It
understand
doesn't make
that.
sense.
I understand that. But then when I got to the point, why would Yondu take that contract if he wasn't going to fulfill it?
Because what if he turns it down and the Sovereign gives it to somebody that's just going to go flat out kill the Guardians? And at least he knows I can protect Peter. I can try to protect these people because he's their friend.
Yeah.
And he tried to do that, right? He's like, no. Like, remember, all he says, let's just take... When he found them, all he said, let's just take the batteries. They're worth $250,000. And there was that funny exchange of like, oh, it's only a quarter. But remember, even then, he was like, no, we're not going to take them. This is good enough. So already, he was trying to protect them. So, in a way, still, Rocket led to...
That's where that
Not his
uprising came, where like everyone else was trying to say like you're weak. Why
Yeah.
don't we take the rest of them?
It was the foundation being built on top of the
On
bricks.
top of the bricks.
Yeah, it's the safe way, folks. Dillis?
Yeah, well, I wanted to.
Hello.
Oh, wow, that thunder is going ham. I wanted to. I don't know. It seems like we're kind of just going all over the place, but I wanted
We're
to
talking
bring up.
story, I guess.
Yeah, I guess you know the storyline with his dad. Like when I first saw him, like even in the trailers, like I got the feeling that it was pretty sketchy, but I didn't know what path it was going to take, and I think this movie did that well. And like I didn't understand, I didn't see the twists and turns coming that it took of them discovering like all the bones and stuff like that
That was
underground, and then from there, like I don't know, I didn't see that part coming. So in that regard, I was, I guess I didn't expect any of that, and so I was happy for that.
Well, that's why
reason.
I compared it. Oh, sorry.
That's it.
Oh yeah, that's why I compared it to Civil War and Zemo, which spoilers for that movie. But it's like, yeah, he's just a bad guy, but then they give that little hook at the end of like, oh, that Ventress killed his family accidentally, and that's why he's doing this. It wasn't the same as that, but to me it was, okay, it looks like this guy's going to be shitty. He'll probably be the villain, but I didn't figure out, right, when he told his whole plan, I didn't already know, like, oh, this is what he's going to do, and I'll agree with you, that's why I liked it more, and that's why I didn't found it the weakest, the son and father storyline, because I found it rather unpredictable. Other than when Mantis kind of gives stuff away, I didn't see where it was going, and I still didn't know it was like, oh, maybe he's bad, like Ego, but he doesn't really know it. Like maybe he's out of control. Like, and that's what I mean. I'm the same as you. I didn't see where they're going with it, and I liked that because some of these superhero movies can get a little predictable. Of like, you know, this is what's happening. It's a weapon. It's this. Okay, they're gonna beat it. Here we go. But I liked, you know, just the setup of like, oh, there's a core. Like I just found the whole thing. I did not know was coming next.
They cloaked that really well too. I mean, they just showed Kurt Russell in that one scene where he's like, "I'm your dad, Peter." In the trailer.
Yeah,
I found the trailer showed a lot of the beginning.
Had no idea.
Yeah, which I like.
No, I think the trailers did a amazing job of not spoiling anything in hindsight.
Yeah, and like even the scenes from the trailers, like once you see them in the film, you're like, oh, this is where this takes place. But for a lot of them, like you have no idea when these scenes take place. Like the fact that the interplanetary beast fight at the very start, I would not have expected that to be at the very start.
I felt like it was going to be at the beginning.
I felt like it was going to be the beginning. I didn't feel it was going to be credits, though, but I felt it was going to be the beginning.
Yeah.
I'll ask you guys, how did you feel about those the opening credits? Yeah?
Loved it. I didn't like the fact that it was 3D. I might still be getting it. Yeah, but I thought it was really cool. I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it enough. I think, like, Groot dancing around was maybe a tad too long. Like,
I agree.
I'm not, like, complaining or anything, but it's like, you could have made that, like, a minute shorter, perhaps, maybe 30 seconds even.
I think they should have swapped camera angles to different characters throughout the credits and always come back. Like, let's say it's Star-Lord, he's going,
still dancing,
he lands, and you switch over to Groot, and Groot dance over, and then you use him as a transition to get to Gamora.
For
I think
sure,
the
that
whole,
would have been a good idea.
Yeah, I think the whole time, I'm the same as you, where it was like, oh, this really sucks. It was just like, okay, I get the funniness of Groot dancing. He looks really cute. But for me, it was getting close to the point where I was like, this is a little too long. And I get it, because all the other characters are just in the background. They never got focused on. And I felt like for a while, Groot wasn't doing anything. He was literally just dancing, which was cool. I liked when he was like running on the side, and he was doing stuff. But at one point, he was just like doing this over and over. I was like, okay, I get it. I'm sure the kids are loving this. But yeah, I was the same for me. I didn't love it as much as like the first one where Star-Lord was like dancing like randomly and
I do like how they made that interdimensional beast like the intro credit scene. Like I like that aspect. I think that was a good choice because obviously that's something you can show off in the trailers. It's a lot of fun. You can see all the people in action and like interactions between them and stuff like that, and then even like just them fighting too. And I guess I didn't think about it until you said it, but like Drax doesn't really fight a whole lot, so obviously you need to show some of that off in the trailer.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that was a good choice to put that as the opening credit scene.
Taylor, Kyle, any thoughts?
I thought it was fine overall.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to find the word that I'm looking for, but it wasn't.
Fine's a good word.
Fine is a good word. I guess I agree with you guys that the dancing was a little too much, and I think how you pitched the idea of how they should have transitioned would have been a lot better than kind of what they did. Even though it was kind of cool to see Baby Groot kind of just dancing, and then seeing everyone like out of focus, like screwing up.
You can still see them do things.
Yeah,
which was still cool, but then like again when they kept coming back into it, that would have been better. They could have done that, or just a little bit shorter of him like going back and forth, because I felt like it did drag a little bit long of what it should have been. But
I think the one part they could have took out was him riding the little rat thing.
See, I like that because it was him
too.
doing something different than just dancing. That's the only reason. I'm not like, oh, I loved him riding the rat.
Tyler hates rats.
Yeah, that's
rats
how
rats are pretty cool. But I felt like that part went on. Like I don't mind the rat part, but I felt like that of anything of the starting scene, I felt that part felt the longest to me. But
yeah.
Taylor,
anything
you know, I didn't mind at all. It definitely had a Guardians 1 feeling where Star-Lord was dancing around. I will agree with you. I think that would have been cool as Groot's dancing around and transitions to a character flying around shooting back to Groot or whatever. But I mean, Groot dancing around definitely it did what you were kind of saying, but not to that extent where he'd walk around and the character would land, but it would be out of focus. He'd go around another character. Gamora was the only one who really got focused in on it.
Yeah, like
and Drax, but that was just Drax staring at
He had
him,
multiple
like,
times where
like 5 seconds.
Yeah, well, because they kind of hinted back at the end credits of Guardians 1, right? Because remember, it started Baby Groot when he was a twig dancing. Drax looked and he paused, so they did that again, you know. So it was like a little like throwback.
Yeah, it was funny.
Kyle, because you didn't talk about, what did you think about the story overall? You got Peter Quill's story, you got all the gangs splitting off. What did you think?
I think the story overall was really good. I liked how they went into the different aspects of each character and really dived into it. And definitely, it wasn't going to be a repeat of Guardians 1, which was great, because I find a lot of the second movies, they're like, okay, well, this all works, so let's just do it again. And this was definitely not like that at all. And it was just nice, even the supporting characters, not even just the main team, that you got a bit of a background to them, and they weren't just one-dimensional characters. So even the what's the at the very end credit with the guys practicing with the fin, like even he has like some small little role in like
I really liked it in the film.
movie as well too. So.
That is the director's brother. And it's also the guy who plays Rocket, but not the voice. He does the mocap for it.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah, Sean Gunn. I'm trying to look out because I don't know how to pronounce that character's name, but
that's really cool.
So that's what I really enjoyed about it. So I think the story itself was good. I didn't have any plot holes or any issues at all. I really did enjoy it, and I think Marvel did an excellent job of just really fleshing out these characters and making them as all on one level playing field than just like shining just one certain person out of the entire group, right? So I felt it was really nice to see that instead of kind of just a star.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point because the first one had a very simple story, and I think this is something that like Lego Batman did really well, where it could have just been a classic story where he defeats a villain and it would have been fine and dandy. But when you put in like that emotional stuff and it's like unexpected, it really like connects, I guess. So I think they didn't they could have gone with another simple story with one like simple villain and stuff like that, but they chose to like take it a step further and see what they could have done with it. I think they nailed it.
I think all of this is just really setting up into like Infinity War.
Oh my god!
And when you have all these characters, like all of these Marvel's films that we're reviewing and watching, like you can tell each character, a lot of them now have their own backgrounds. So when you go watch that big film, like you're not having to know what's going on with this person or I want to know more about this character. Like that character has already been fleshed out and it's like ready for that film. So I think they're doing a really like bang up job of just setting everything up.
Yeah. No, I would piggyback when you said like a lot of sequels like these can be the exact same thing, and that's where it did. The storytelling felt different. Like the first one, it's little things, but they make a big difference. First one, it's all about the main group. The second one, they're split up. They're doing their simple adventures. Yes, Groot dies in Guardians, but like he comes back alive, so it like takes that right away. And I feel like the ending for Guardians of the Galaxy 1 is a lot more comedic, where the ending to this movie was really emotional between Peter having to literally kill his dad, major spoilers, Yondu dying, and there's that whole
the ending scene is a funeral.
Like to me, Guardians 1 ends this really happy note of like, I can't wait to see what they do next. And this ended in a really like, man, that really like they lost one of their own. This really sucks, So it's like, it does feel different. And it's like, it's not just one main villain. It's like, maybe the Sovereign isn't perfect, but it's a new wrinkle of something. Like that's what whether I think if you love this movie or don't, I think that's what's to me to commend for it, is because it could have just done the same thing. It could have just been The Hangover 2. Oh, we've lost this guy again, and we gotta go find him. Great, let's do this.
I was gonna use that reference, but they reference their own like movie over and over again.
Yeah, and it's all those movies are like the exact same. It's like they're always like, and I don't hate the Hangover movies like other people. It's like it's fun, it's new jokes, a new setting, but it's nothing new. There's nothing new to the actual story, and I do think they did do things. I like Peter and his dad's storyline because I'm happy that was resolved. It ended in one. Apparently, Disney loves to do that with Rey and Star-Lord. They love leaving you on a cliffhanger who their parent is, but I like that. I think for a couple of years of build-up, and it's different than who the comics is, I liked the result of his dad's storyline, and I like now that's done, we can move along. That's always been my thing about Star Wars 8. It's like, I really want them to answer Rey's parentage just so we can move along and be done with it, and that's why I like, okay, we had the chapter of Peter Quill's father, now for the third one, we can move on and get into the adventures. Whether that means the team is breaking up, some people die, whatever it is, this father thing's not looming over them. I like Drax's story of him kind of, he's on the side, but him just like, even at the end when he like kind of accepts Mantis and it seems like they might have a maybe a romantic thing down the line. Like, I liked him being kind of your side. He was everyone's humor, everyone's funny in this movie, but I feel he was the biggest like comedic relief.
He was, yeah.
I like Yondu's story. He is the redemption tale of this. I like Gamora and Nebula's tale a lot of this like reconnecting of sisters. So, like every single little story that happened, I really liked. So the Ravagers I liked too, because I actually felt like they made them not scary, but feel like terrible people and threats in this one when they're literally just like sending people out to die to freeze to death. Where in the first one, the Ravagers
They just seem like pirates.
yeah, and they're just joke. Like to me, they're just
Kind of like a
cannon
big
fodder.
joke,
Yeah, they're just there for a punchline. Where this one, also they got taken out really easy by Yondu in a very cool scene and a very like, in my opinion, kind of dark scene for like kids that can watch
Yeah,
it.
with
Like
all their bodies flying.
yeah, with the whistle thing going around. Like I know it's like cartoony violence, but it's still like it still had and it's fun
Still,
music.
And a lot of people died for sure.
A lot of people died in this
Well,
movie.
even like the scene when they're like throwing people out of the ship.
that
and,
was
and
yeah.
that's why I like too. They kind of like Yondu. That's how he died too. In the same, like obviously it's not the same, like just them throwing him out
Yeah.
to kill him. But I
Same
liked how
result.
I like how he like died in the same way as all those people. I thought that was an interesting like
Yeah,
I don't know like
his,
I don't know if it's a
faithful
reference or
crew.
something. Yeah, I
Yeah.
just thought it was interesting.
And like yeah, honestly, I don't think the Ravagers are gonna be around that much, but I liked even little things that I felt like they are much more of a presence this one. Even the mutiny was much more present, where the first one just felt like they were just mindless people that are just there because we need Yondu to have a crew, you know? So I
Yeah.
like, if they were to come back, they have a bit more edge of like, oh yeah, these are kind of scary fuckers who are just gonna like freeze you if you don't do what they say, you know? Good old taser face, so.
Taserface.
Do you feel like this definitely added that kind of tone to what to expect with Yondu dying? Because this is our first kind of main character that's really passing, as far as I can remember.
Well, yes and no. Like, I think, like, do you mean in Guardians or like Marvel or all?
Coming like in Infinity War, because there's gonna be a lot of death.
I think
so
there's
you
gonna
can
be a
say.
lot
So
of
this
death,
is kind of
yeah.
set that kind of atmosphere to expect. Okay, we've lost an actual major character,
Mhm.
and there's only more to come. So it kind of makes you get used to it, or get kind of in flow. Like, okay, these characters are vulnerable. They actually can die. They're not invincible. Like we've seen them get injured, but they can die now.
I honestly don't think so. I think it was more for Yondu's and Peter's story. I think even if Infinity War wasn't coming, I think Yondu would die because that little flashback they have of Yondu teaching Kid
Yeah.
Star-Lord to shoot.
Yeah, oh my
Perfect.
gosh.
Like that's where I think he would have died no matter what. Because then it would have been like, oh, they're together, happy ending. He feels like that's his dad now.
Yeah.
But for Peter realizing that's his dad and Yondu sacrificing himself, making up for the lives he had ruined because he figures out about the kids. So I think he would have died regardless. I don't think it was a setup. It helps because, yeah, I think people will die in Infinity War. People are going to have to get used to, like, it's going to be much more heavier coming up. But
Yeah.
I think that would have happened regardless, whether Infinity
Yeah.
War or not. And I think the story needed it because, I'm going to be honest, I cried. I cried twice, like you said. I cried when he died, and I cried, honestly, when all the Ravengers showed up and were showing all the colors. That's why I was like,
Yeah.
oh my god, no. Especially because the little thing they do when they just have that little scene with Sylvester Stallone, who we'll get into later, like, just saying, like, we'll never respect you again. Like, you're not one of us. You're not one of our brothers. You helped him take those children.
Yeah.
And he didn't know. He just thought he was, like, returning a kid to their father, you know? He didn't know, and he got, you know, wealthy from it, but he still figured out, but he still did bad stuff, and I like little stuff all paid off. Like I said, that Star-Lord flashback, you know, the little stuff they set up
Well,
for.
the Yondu storyline, like, cause the first movie I liked him, but like I didn't love him. Like he was
He's just
cool.
there. He's
he was
cool.
cool. Like
Yeah.
his fin is sweet, and like his needle thing. What do they call it?
Arrow.
Arrow. His what is the name? Like the device? I don't know.
I don't know
The
the
fin
actual
arrow.
name.
The
yeah.
fin arrow. The fin arrow was
Sure.
you know, it was cool, but like I didn't love the character. But in this movie, they really gave him like the light of day, I guess. And then like that storyline of him, I guess being like a father figure to Peter. I think they did a great job of like showing it, right, and like not telling it. You know, the classic like some movies, you know, don't bother to take the care and they just tell you, you know, how you should feel or you should think about this character. But they really took the time to show it, and it was even like a build up from the first one too, because
Yeah, that's
obviously
what I
like
was
Yondu just always seems to want to keep Peter alive and like want to take care of him
for
and
no
then,
reason that we
Yeah,
know, really.
yeah.
and then we get like the flashbacks and stuff like that, and just every comment he has toward him, and then I guess the other scene with him and Rocket in the prison cell, and they have that like heart to heart, and they kind of talk about that. So I think they did a phenomenal job of like showing that, and then after you like knew it and believed it already, then they show the funeral scene.
Yeah.
So you already like kind of knew it and felt that before they like told you that in the I guess the eulogy or whatever it was of Peter like saying his goodbyes. So
Well,
I think they did a phenomenal job with that character. A
yeah.
character that I just thought was okay or just sort of liked, like a character that I love. And I think obviously he's dead now, but I think it was a perfect storyline and a perfect conclusion for him.
I think for me, like Drax was my favorite character because I find him so funny and I like that character. But for my favorite storyline, Yondu's was my favorite in this movie. And I think when you said, I think now this is what a sequel should do. It almost kind of improves the first one because I think when you watch the first one, you'll watch this back because it was this thing of like, oh, he's still kind of shady because he never gave Quill to his dad. So it's like, oh, he cares for him, but he's still kind of shady. But now we know, oh, well, he kept him for a certain reason, and now those flashbacks we saw more caring. So it's like you'll go back and watch that first one differently, which a sequel should do. It should not just be mute or just to be to set up a third one. It should impact your entire series, and I feel that's what this does for Yondu more than any
that's
other
what they're doing with
character.
these movies. They're like we've talked about this many times, but they're not just making one movie, right?
Yeah.
They're all building it towards something, and even if it's not for like Infinity War, like obviously Yondu doesn't get there, but his story, is included here.
I would be surprised if people up in some sort of flashback or some sort of memory with something. Well, something to mess with Peter because those Infinity Gauntlets can do some crazy stuff. So I don't know if we've seen the last of Yondu yet, to be honest.
So talking about Infinity, since Peter has no longer the ability to be immortal, can he no longer hold the
Nope, he'll fucking die.
Okay.
As the story, he should die.
As it implies.
Yeah, as it implies. Yeah, so he should die. So he shouldn't be holding any stones or whatnot.
Okay.
So.
Just want to double check on that.
Yeah. Tyler, you want to go over quickly the cast? Who you liked? Who you didn't like? If there was anybody you didn't like. Or you want
There wasn't really anyone I didn't like.
Yeah.
I think my favorite was Yondu and Rocket. This film, and as with their storyline too, that was just amazing and the most emotional for sure. And just all of Yondu's emotional scenes, I felt like he just played those just perfectly. And I think he's, I don't know. I honestly, you could say that him and Rocket. But more specifically, Yondu is almost a star of.
I think in a way he kind of steals it from a story aspect. Because it's tough to debate.
As you said, and with me as well, we both cried during his death and his funeral. The most emotionally driven storyline for sure was his. I would say, but
and I think it's one I know we've just seen this. We're it's just because you saw it, but I feel like it's one just overall Marvel. As far as emotion, that's why I like Civil War. Marvel does big villain storylines and character storylines about them not getting along. But for emotion, I won't talk about but there's a twist ending in Civil War. That happens with Zemo and he reveals something. Other than that, I can't think of a time. Too many times. Maybe I'd have to think about it real hard. But on the spot, there's not too many that have emotional impact storylines. I felt like this was. That scene where he sacrifices himself, that's where I felt like there's not many scenes like this in Marvel or any other comics
because
right now.
Most up until now characters have been alive.
Yeah, so
there
there's no
hasn't
need
really
to have
been that
scene.
threat of death to them because we've always known just they're gonna get through this somehow.
Yeah,
and now it's oh shit, they can die, and now it opens up to those more emotional scenes.
Because even when I thought about Avengers 2 when Quicksilver dies, for me it's just oh, he's dead. Okay, it's even then, but this is
I forgot about him.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And this was they built up to the perfect way to make you care. Because I think if Yondu from 1 dies, you're oh, I kind of liked him, but whatever. But what they do to him in this film makes you you said. One of my favorite characters now that I'm sad that he's gone. It's not Quicksilver where it's you forgot from me. It's I don't care about Yondu. Now I'm it worked for the story, but now in 3 rolls around, I'm man, I miss Yondu. I wish he was here for this moment, so I would agree with you there. Taylor, what about you for cast? Anyone stand out or anyone stand out in a negative way?
Nebula, I didn't like her too much.
A lot of people actually don't like her, and I understand why actually, but I still like her. I like that she's the most hardcore. I think she's the the most badass one on the team. That she's no fucks given. That's why you should like her.
I feel like why people don't like her is because she seems so different than the rest of the team. But the way she reacts to the rest of the team is very realistic, given her personality and given how she's not part of.
That's what I like. Yeah,
jokes and bitterness with each other. And
they all call each other outsiders. She's really an outsider.
Oh yeah,
100%. And I think they did a good job in this movie.
I think she plays the part of the outsider really well.
But why for you, Taylor?
Well, as you said, they nailed her perfectly like that and everything.
Oh, hey,
Oh, hey.
But just
I love a good
Nailed
nail.
her. I didn't see that scene.
It goes for the foundation.
That's in the
That's
sixth
the sixth
parody.
post-credit scene.
Yeah.
But just I don't know, as a character, just she ticks me off with how like outrageous and like angry and stuff she is. Just like, oh,
See, I never
Gosh.
know when you critique stuff if it's from like a movie standpoint, like a critic, or like a I hate that kid. Because once again, you make it sound like you just don't like her because the way she is. But anybody else stand out negatively or positively?
well,
negatively.
I just want to say quickly on Nebula, like, I think I didn't love her either in this movie, but I liked her presence enough because I think she's the one character who doesn't have like a joke in this movie.
Yeah.
And I think
She does actually.
She does,
Does she?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
not
Not
right.
right.
It's not right.
Cringe.
oh yeah, that,
Yeah, I didn't like
they
that.
shouldn't have put that in there.
No.
I don't know. I
I
didn't like
liked
that.
it because I
But
liked
they were
it.
like hinting at it the whole
It was
time.
yeah, it
though.
was too like
I liked it
yeah.
because I felt it came off awkward on purpose, and I liked that. The
Yeah.
one I'll say that before, the one joke I didn't like before I forget, I didn't like, and maybe it's a setup that he didn't really care that much, Kurt Russell, ego, but at one point when he's being really emotional, he's like, I'm going to take a plan. He's like, but I need to take a piss. And then he walked away. That was one of the few jokes in our theater that got no laugh at all, and they tried to play it
Yeah.
for comedic, and that was one that stood out for me, like, that didn't need it. And maybe it's a show now, they're like, oh, that's why it's an emotional part. He doesn't really care about his son. Like, he's going to take a pee. But for me, it was like, it really didn't land. And that stuck out for me of like, oh, I didn't like that. So I can agree. I don't agree about Nebula. I like that line, but I can see that there's lines in here that you may that didn't flow.
Kurt Russell's character a little bit, like I liked him, but a little bit for me, I didn't like the fact where how they played him off as like he's a celestial being. He's been alive for a long time, but at the same time, he acts very earthly, humanly with the way he talks and everything. And he's
But
not
Very immature, I guess.
immature. He's gone to like who knows how many worlds and been with how many species. But why does he act so earthly?
He does say that he wanted to take the appearance that would work for Quill the
That
best.
Peter would like.
Yeah, because remember when he turns
Yeah.
into David Hasselhoff? So that was my mind of like, if this was a outlandish and very childish, I think he was trying to show that like, oh, we're father and son, like that's you and I. He kept always saying that like you and I can be together and do this. So
But even in like the images where he's showing Peter, like it shows he's in his human form, but with the alien species still.
I don't know how much of that is true and how much is that just him trying to get the point across that hey, this is what I look like.
Yeah.
He could have been an alien maybe, but we don't know that he
He just
acted.
wanted to like deform his visual
Vision.
look for Peter.
Because it would mean
Yeah.
nothing to Peter if it was just two aliens making love.
Yeah,
right?
that's
So,
a good
yeah.
point. Yeah. But like even then, we don't know his personality. His personality could have been different, right? Just because even his physical appearance. So
Okay, yeah. Well, then, other than that, those two things, I think the characters that I loved were like Yondu, Rocket. I loved Yondu's partner in crime, like who stuck it out until the very end.
Oh, I
It
have
doesn't
to
surprise me at all that you just love that guy.
yeah.
I totally do. He was awesome. He just
Like,
like
almost
when-
reminds me of you a little bit.
It's
Really?
Carglin.
Carglin.
Yeah, it does remind me.
I
of
hope
Taylor,
to be.
actually.
I hope to be half the man that Carglin is at some point in my
Oh,
life.
God.
He is.
If
he
it
is
means
the
I can get a
Ravager.
fin and an arrow, I
The
would.
Ravager.
I mean,
That'd be pretty cool.
He goes
Yeah.
good.
what would you do with a fin and arrow?
I would
Fight Grim.
very likely.
Fly into Drax's neck.
Or Rob
Just
I would
kill a
Banks.
bunch of
fly.
people? I don't see you as a murderer.
I
Tyler.
probably wouldn't, honestly. I just
Take
do
him
cool
over the
circus
shins.
tricks with it.
Yeah, you by the shins. You
It'd
can
just be cool to have. That's like my favorite.
Okay.
Honestly, probably one of my favorite weapons of all time.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
wow.
when the
could be like
storm
Mary
happens,
Poppins.
we
Flying
have-
in as Mary Poppins.
You could.
I'm Mary
that was-
Poppins. That was such a good
Oh,
line.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Mary Poppins, y'all. Is he cool, dude? Yeah, he's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the
Just lets
hesitation
him have
to
it.
before saying.
Yeah, he's cool.
Yeah.
That was really
We'll never
played
find
well
out.
too, like how Star Lord just played it off, like with Rocket too. Like what does he say? Like something panda. What does he call
A
Rocket?
dirty panda.
Dirty panda. He's like, is that,
Trash panda.
Trash panda. Is
Trash
that,
panda.
is that cool?
It gets even worse.
I love how no one else can really clue in, and that's stuff where it's meant for like the audience because we all can understand that,
Yeah.
and that's the kind
That's
of
Earthlings.
that's the kind of humor that's
Cool
actually
humor
really
comes.
well played too, in a sense where like we can pick up on that, and then for them it's different. Like it's more audience directed.
Yeah.
They're not
One
trying
thing
to
I like
force you.
with you, I feel like you're not like you said really don't like the Sovereign, but I feel like a lot of they're kind of like a comedic relief villain, but a lot of their humor was like from parallels that what we can relate to per se. like them playing the video games, and then like they're all like watching him, and then like he doesn't obviously clutch it out per se for the team, the last guy, so they all like trash talk him.
Yeah.
And like like I want to have sex with you for research. Like I feel like that's a common internet joke and stuff like that. So
that's
I feel
a
like-
lot of truth to it actually.
yeah. So I felt like there was just like a lot of parallels that at least I could relate to. Just like they weren't exactly good jokes, but it's like I know what you're getting on about. I've seen that before.
I just didn't like them because of the fact that they came off as being like, we genetically create our own species like perfectly, but yet they were so immature and had attitudes.
Well,
and
that's
were,
true. That's a character flaw.
It is like if you're gonna
They're
be
not used to
perfected,
things, but they're not used to situations not going their way.
Yeah.
That's why they act like that.
Maybe they have that. They don't realize that they have that flaw, so they continue genetically creating themselves with that flaw without realizing it's a
This
flaw.
guy right here.
Yeah.
Dylan, what about you in the cast? Any negatives?
Well,
big pros?
let's talk about Chris Pratt, because I think my problem with him wasn't the storyline, because I did like his storyline with his dad. I don't know, I just felt like the first maybe like half an hour or so, like I don't know, I don't know if it was like a script or like acting, but I didn't feel like it was Chris Pratt there. Like I felt like it was like a Chris Pratt imposter or something. Like I didn't fully connect to him. I'm not sure what it was, but I was just like, I don't know, like I love Chris Pratt, but I don't love this guy that I'm seeing on screen right now. And I think it connected later, like the last like half of the movie, I guess. Like I was invested in the character and I picked up, and it was just, you know, Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy 1, but I don't know, he didn't like pick me up right off the bat like that. And I don't know, maybe it was like his jokes I didn't like as much or something. I don't know. I'm still not sure what it was, but there was something about him that seemed a little off for me.
Could it be because a lot of the characters were talking to him instead of him talking to them? Because to me,
he wasn't as impactful.
Yeah, to me, it's Aisha's talking to him a lot, Gamora's talking to him a lot, and then his dad's talking to him a lot. I feel like there's a lot of scenes in the first half of Peter Quill standing or walking around listening and having to react. So that's why I feel like he actually didn't have that much talk. I didn't have a problem right when I saw him, like, oh, that's Chris Pratt, that's Star-Lord. Yeah. I felt the way, but that's the only thing I could offer as maybe.
Yeah.
Just because I felt like he didn't do much in that first half. He was there to be like, oh, is this my dad? Is this not my dad? Like, that's why like I said,
it wasn't like an issue the whole movie. It was just like something for the first, like, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes or something like that. And then I felt like he was the only one who, like, interacting with the CGI effects. Like, when he was doing the ball, like, it didn't look natural. And, like, I think everyone else with Groot looked fine. Like, they did a really good job of, you know, like, it looked like Groot was there and they were acting, like, fair enough. But he was the only one that seemed a little off for me in that regard. I don't know. I think I'd have to watch it again to really know what the issue is there.
Like when Groot was, like, sitting on his lap and he's, like, holding Groot.
I don't know. I just mean, like, in general, like, especially the scene when he was, like, trying to learn, like, the magic or whatever, the celestial powers. I don't know. It seemed a little off to me. But like I said, I really enjoyed his storyline. I think it was. I'm not sure if it was just like a lack of like something interesting in his script at the start or acting. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Other than that, I really Nebula was like decent enough. I liked her more at the end. You know, when you get like the full array of her storyline and that she still is gonna go off. Like, I don't know. There's something about her. I think it's like the robotic factor where she just has that serious lack of emotion that the rest of them have shown throughout this movie.
Yeah.
And it's just like pure rage. That's like all that's left inside her or something. And so I like that. I'm curious what her role is going to be in Infinity War. I could totally see her just like coming in and just like getting bopped or something. But I don't know. Maybe she'll have a bigger role.
It all depends. If they don't follow comics, it could be up there. If they follow comics, she's a very big role. So it's an interesting.
I don't know. I feel like for the sake of the movies, that might not be a good decision. Just because, like, personally, like, she's probably my least favorite of the crew.
Yeah.
Like I said, I really love this movie, so she's not a bad character, but she's definitely like lowest on the totem pole for me, I'd say.
If they do it the way of the comics, I think you'll like it because they think they make enough sense where you're like, oh, this makes sense why this character is in this certain position.
Yeah. Maybe it'll be like some character change or something. But
like
so far, like even though she had those connections with Gamora, she's still pretty much just like this rage-filled being who just like wants to kill like her family essentially.
It'll be lessened because you'll have the Avengers and Spider-Man and a bunch of people, but I feel like she could have a Yondu-esque moment in this movie, and I mean she could have that in Infinity War the same way Yondu had in this movie. If done right, I feel like they could do that. Or she might just get bopped right with like, oh well, Nebula's gone, and that sucks for her.
Hopefully they give her a little bit more on that, just to actually like, because if she died like during this movie, like I wouldn't care nearly as much as Yondu, right? Like I think she was good enough, but think about if like she was like the final character in that scene instead of
It wouldn't have
Yondu.
been as
It
impactful.
wouldn't have been nearly as strong. So, I liked Gamora. I don't think she was like stand out. Like I think she was kind of exactly what I expected, and she fulfilled in that regard. Like I said, Drax, I liked a lot more than I was expecting. Mantis, I actually really liked her. I thought she was funny. Like I think from the trailers, I was like, why is this character in this movie? Like I don't see the point. And obviously, like story wise, she has like the connections and understands what's going on in the deeper levels. So like she had that regard, but I also liked her powers. I thought those were interesting and how she uses them to hold back. What's his name? Ego for a time at least. So yeah, I thought that was good. What other characters is there? I really liked Rocket in this movie. Like I said, I feel like he was almost like he wasn't necessarily the star, but I wouldn't be surprised if you look at the numbers, if he had the most screen time. Like he was there a lot at the time.
It's worth looking out. Yeah.
Yeah, like I really liked him. I thought he was phenomenal.
I think there's.
And I think the thing about him that I liked is that in the first movie is pretty much like him and Groot were the pair. But obviously we talked about this before. They kind of switched up the pairs and who's with who. And obviously they were still together in the like the Ravager ship and whatnot. But he seemed to like connect with other characters more. So I liked that a lot.
I think there's a really strong chance that we just get a Groot and Rocket movie because there's a comic book right now where Rocket's trying to find out about his origins and why he's experimenting on. And especially because they're like, oh, after Guardians 3, the team might not be the same. I could see them not killing them, because why would you kill CGI Raccoon? Keep same with the tree. It's like, why would you kill CGI character? They don't age. I could honestly see them getting their own film in the future, and I think it would be successful.
I could see that like down the line.
Yeah, because people love Groot, people love Rocket's like your adult crowd, and Groot's your kid crowd, so I feel like they could do it. So, Kyle, cast for you?
I enjoyed the cast. Everyone did a really good job. I felt like maybe the reason why you feel kind of disconnected from Chris Pratt is because he wasn't the star of the whole show, and they brought up everyone else, and so it kind of just diminishes that one character a little bit more. It doesn't really bring it up.
It definitely could be an expectation thing. Like going into this movie, I fully expected him to be number one head honcho again. Yeah, and he wasn't. Right? But he still was up there. I guess.
But otherwise, like I feel like it was really cool to see all the characters do a really bang up job. I mean, all the cast do a good job of the characters and really play the emotions, and like how we kind of just overviewed and talked about this is that like characters that you didn't really expect, like Yondu, to really come up, and even like Rocket, a CGI Raccoon, like, it was really cool to see. Like even that like really grabs the audience's attention, just to kind of bring that extra level that that wasn't really there before. So I think the cast themselves did a really good job of just building up these characters, even the supporting characters. Again, I'll say that they did a really good job of just making you feel like you're seeing Mantis, and you're really feeling I'm trying to think of another, even Taserface. Like he's still like one dimension character because he's like wanting to do something, but he still like did a good job of what they were doing. So I think from a cast perspective, because we've kind of talked a lot about just each person like character itself, but I think the cast did a really good job.
Yeah, no, for me, I love Drax. I love Drax in the first one. I loved him even more in this one. I could watch a whole movie. I find his humor so good. I laughed at, I think, every single line he had. I think Dave Bautista does phenomenal. I'm so proud of that guy. He's just a fucking, like, a wrestler 10 years ago just doing stuff. I never thought he was capable of this. So, like, from comedics-wise, he was my favorite. Loved him. And then, like I said before, from, like, a character-wise, I think Yondu, like, a storyline-wise, I think everyone was better except for, I think Star-Lord was good. I think he was just the same. I think he was more better near the end half. I wasn't for me where I didn't feel connected to him, but I feel like in this movie, I don't know.
It's hard to put your finger on it.
I think he was a 0.5 better, where I feel like everyone else was maybe not leaps and bounds better, but really improved. Where I didn't, but at the same time, I didn't feel like he needed to improve. I still like he did a great job. It's just like everybody else. Maybe it's just because they had more character. Like, it's hard because he had this big character moment with his dad and everything like this. I feel like maybe 3 is going to be back to him, because you kind of see he's like taking on this dad role with Groot now. He's with Gamora now in a relationship, it seems like. So I think it's going to be more centered around him. And it's funny, like, in a storyline about his dad, I felt like he grew enough, but I feel like it was like I said, for me, it was just a lot of people were talking to him, so he didn't do as much of the action. Not like fighting action, just action in general. Yeah, I thought everyone did better. I liked Mantis enough. If she never appeared again, I honestly wouldn't actually care. I thought she was there. She served a role. She was fine to be like this plot device to be like, oh, Kurt Russell's bad, and this is why. But I liked her enough, but I know apparently she's in Infinity War. She'll probably be in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Like, if she ever dies or goes away, I'm never going to care. Like, I like Nebula more than her, so I liked her enough for her role, but she didn't leave a big impression on me. Maybe if they do this romance with her and Drax, that might change my opinion. I might like her more, the same way Yondu I liked more.
Once again, right, like, your Yondus and your Nebulas from the first movie weren't phenomenal, but this time well, Nebula's still iffy, but I mean, they're better.
See, and I don't think that Nebula's iffy. I like that I liked her progression of liking Gamora, and now she's on a strict path, like, I'm going to kill Thanos, so he doesn't ever do this again, and I like that going into the next movie. Where I think Mantis, same thing.
This wasn't the movie to give her backstory.
True, and that's the thing, like, I wouldn't care if I didn't see her again, but I'm not opposed to it. I'm not like, oh, she brought it down. I was just like, oh, she's good, but she's not anyone I'm talking about after this. For me, all about Drax. Love Drax so much. So, villain, Tyler? We talk about the Sovereign. That's how I was going to the side. What do you think about the villain? I guess the plan overall, because that's always a big thing in these superhero films.
Didn't blow me away. It was good. I thought, like, as I said earlier, that the main plot around it I felt was like the weakest part of the film. But like, I still think it wasn't like a bad plot. It's just I feel like they could have done a couple things along the way a little bit differently. But overall, I thought it was a good villain. I like how they made it follow the villain, because a lot of times, like, you kind of have an idea of what's going on in the from the trailers, and like you go into this film having no idea pretty much.
Yeah.
And then like there are hints along the way, and you kind of get the feel of it that like he's gonna be the bad guy. But I really like. I think the plan overall, and like just like his intent behind his evil plan was good. I think they played it pretty well, I'd say. I like how they hinted at like the plants at the start and the opening scene. I thought overall it was good. Nothing spectacular, but nothing bad.
Taylor?
Like I said before, I didn't see it coming that Kurt Russell was the villain. Typical kind of point of view is like his kind of why he was bad was just his point of view. I kind of feel like that's the aim that they're taking, like with Caecilius kind of thing, which I don't mind. It's always a cool thing to see where they're coming from as a villain. It kind of dives more into them as a character a little bit. But overall wasn't bad. It was pretty good. So yeah. I don't know. I already talked about the villain. I don't know what else to say.
True. I thought it was perfect. I think, obviously, like, the main storyline you could say of this movie was like the relationships and the people's connections and stuff like that. So I think for the sake of it, like, being the big bad villains, the storyline of this movie, I thought it was perfect. Like I said, I had that one like kind of issue where like I didn't really understand his reasoning, I guess, a little bit, but it's not really like anything to scoff at. Like it's fine. I thought the like effects of him, like when he was down to like the skeleton and he was like slowly regrowing his face, like it was so well done.
I was gonna shout that out.
Yeah, and I think obviously like Kurt Russell, he's a really great actor, obviously, and I think he did a really phenomenal job in this movie.
He's great at being charming, and then the second he wants to, turning an evil, he can just turn it so quickly and not even feel in a way that it feels weird or awkward.
Yeah, it's
just
cheesy.
Like you can believe it, and like I think I think him being in that role has a lot to do with that. I'm the same as you. I like it a lot. I think with him, that's why, and I think actually that's where Pratt shone. I think they actually had good chemistry together when they were talking to each other. I think that's where it started to get better with Pratt, and I thought the ending of that was great because of those two. So
and I liked his because obviously he's been around for a long time, and so I think a lot of his reasoning like doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but it does because like he looks like a human. He walks around like a person, but obviously his experience is like a hell of a lot different than anybody else's. Yeah. And I loved how like his face like just like came out on the planet and.
And that's exactly from the comic books.
That's that's cool. And like even like down in the, I guess in like the inner workings of
the
where his brain was, like his face is just coming out of all sorts of places. I don't know. I really thought that was a really well done final fight. I guess you could say, even though it wasn't like the final scene. Obviously, it's like the Yondu thing, which is perfect because that was like the main storyline of the movie. But yeah, for the sake of like being a villain, I thought he was perfect. I I don't think I could ask for any more. Like, and I think the fact that he's dead, and like obviously you've talked about this before, how like they keep killing off all their villains.
This one I feel like some I don't feel like they need to. This one I feel like they kind of need to. Because it's a planet, you can't really,
and it gives closure to Peter's story.
Yeah, and it takes away his powers now too. So it's like I think with some villains it's good, and this one it worked. Other times like you didn't have to do this with this person, but I think this time it felt warranted. Like, yeah, we gotta take out this guy. He's a fucking planet, so it's a little dangerous.
The other thing I enjoyed is in the first movie, from my memory, the only moments where there's like scenes on Earth is like Peter, I guess, with his mom in the hospital, and then when he gets abducted, and those are kind of like the same scene, right?
Yeah.
And so I like that they are setting the roots, even I guess with the flower itself, of like them being involved with Earth. Obviously, the guy who created that giant like storm thing, whatever it is, on Earth is gone now, but I don't know. I don't know if that will be their connection of why they go to Earth and find out and like talk to the Avengers and all that. But I like how
they're reverse where the Avengers go to them, right?
Yeah, it'll be something. I like how they're like I guess building that bridge. So and like I think I don't know if that will be really the path, but I
think it has to because that stuck out to me. They're showing all these alien planets, and the second they showed Earth and this blue like goop attacking them, I was like, that feels like that's the reason. That feels like that's the beginning of Infinity War for them to be like, hey. Because if they never mention that, for me, that's the same thing as Suicide Squad. When there's a beam in the sky and you don't see Batman anywhere. If this whole blue goop attacked Earth and Tony's not like, hey, what the fuck was this? Like, that's why I want Infinity War to start on the news, this happening. Because if not, that really makes no sense. But I think that was, knowing Marvel, I think that was put there deliberately. I think that will be somewhat of a bridge or the starting of like, hey, we gotta really investigate what's going on in space. Because they just killed, because they literally showed cops get killed in this movie. They're like, the cops were like, stand back, and they showed them get gulped up. That's what I mean. So it's like, it's not just like, oh, it did property damage. Like, this thing killed people too, right?
So I think it could be like Spider-Man where Tony Stark's like, don't worry about it. The Vulture is killing people.
Well, I would hope if Tony Stark looks at Vulture and looks at this blue goop, that's the thing. Oh, well.
It's the same kind of idea.
That's a little difficult though, because
it's like it's explainable. Like they know what's going on. Whereas with the blue goop, it's like there's no.
What the hell is this?
Well, it's kind of strange that we talked about after the theater. The director said this movie takes 3 months after Guardians 1, and then
3 years.
3 years from Infinity War because like most of the other movies jump years, right? And they jump
that'd be weird.
So now I'm trying to think. Shouldn't we have heard about this blue goops already then? Because I'm thinking that like these movies, Guardians are in the past, like Civil War is the present. So technically, we should have heard about this. Well, if you think about that, Guardians was only this one's only 3 months in the future. Where I feel like Civil War and Ant-Man are much more further into the future from like Avengers, right?
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's any kind of like nod or mention if we were to rewatch?
No, maybe I think they'll retroactively.
But they don't talk about Guardians 1 having any relation to the timeline already, do they?
No, because it didn't affect them at all, right? Because it was all in space. Yeah, exactly. But this affected Earth. So you know what? I gotta look at some.
I'm kind of curious now because if this is like 3 years and then they're talking about this goop.
That's all. That could be a big plot hole in Infinity War.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like I don't know if they're gonna go into that like fully, but like that they're at least setting the foundation or like building the bridge between them.
Yeah, they're setting the bridge. I just worry if those bridges have a couple of plot holes in them. So you don't want that in a bridge. That'll bug me a bit. But I bet in Infinity War they'll just think, oh, and then there was that incident 2 years ago, and it's gonna be like, you guys didn't talk about it in Civil War, like no one brought up.
Well, that's in Civil War they have like that screen where they show
everything that happens.
Scovia or whatever it is. Yeah. All the other shit that's been happening in the last few years.
Yeah, so that's something to look out for. We're gonna look out. That's funny. I didn't think about that. Kyle, what do you think about the villain?
I really like the villain. I think he really brought it wasn't too overpowering of the whole story itself.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of just like it just felt like a part of the story where there's so many other storylines happening, but it was also, I guess for me, like Yondu really put more of the glue of everything that was happening in the story all together.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was just a good way of just to have a wrap up of, like all these other characters coming together because of this one incident, but it doesn't take away or overpowers like everyone else's role in the rest.
It taped it all together, you could say.
It taped it all together.
Taped it over the bricks.
Those
bricks together.
Foundation.
Yeah, I'm the same as Dylan. I thought it was perfect. I actually had no problems with his motives. I got 100%. The only problem I had was that little thing I said at the end where I felt like they didn't need to throw in the "I killed your mom" sort of bits. Like, he's already bad. I get where they're going with this. So that was the minor critique. But like, I had to think about it. I think behind Loki, he might be my favorite Marvel villain. I really liked him. I liked that he had a personal link to one of our main characters, where that was, for me, Guardians, the first one was still like a 10, because I love it, so enjoyable, but my only minuscule problem is I don't really care about Ronan the Executioner. He's a very, just like, I've been damaged and hurt by the law, and I'm going to destroy a planet. It's kind of like, they kind of give him a little backstory, but it's just kind of like, he's just a big dude who wants to kill people, you know?
Yeah.
And
Like,
he's
if he was the sovereign of that movie, that would have been a better role.
Yeah, and it's like, you need that badass villain. I like that. I get that. I'm not saying, and I think that worked, and that's why that didn't hurt Guardians 1, because I think you need that for your first superhero movie. The same way we kind of talked about in non-spoilers with Logan. That's the reason the weaker villain didn't hurt me, because it's like, it's not about them.
Yeah.
In a sequel for Logan, you'd need like a more compelling villain. Where the same thing with this, I felt like he was a more compelling villain. So, and Kurt Russell was fantastic. I think he killed it. Honestly, I would love to see him again. We're not gonna, because he's gone. But I thought he was a great
There was
villain.
a scene, like, I can't remember what shot. There was a shot of him, and it just reminded me of that cast we had a while ago, where we cast him as Bowser in the Nintendo
He has to do it.
live action.
He's used to doing CGI.
His mane, man, it works perfectly.
Mm-hmm. The soundtrack, Tyler, what do you think about that? First one is maybe known even more for the quality of the film. The soundtrack, the use of music, probably one of the best uses of soundtrack in the film. What do you think about this?
Great, very enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't overpower any scenes, but it wasn't so like too subtle. It's just right on. I don't know what more there is to really say about it. Just really great, enjoyable, and just like the right music at the right time.
Yeah.
I liked it better in the first one, and the music was. I liked the music more. I liked how they timed it well with all the scenes. Don't get me wrong, I think they did a great job with the music in this one. I especially love the Zune scene at the end.
That was so fucking good.
great.
Oh, this is what
That's
all the
hilarious.
people are using on Earth right now,
Yeah.
Yondu said. Over 300 songs. So now we're because I was wrong. I thought he was going to get if the dad was good, I thought he was going to get an awesome mix Volume 3 from his dad. If the dad was like, oh, have fun in your adventures, I made you this. But now he's at Zune. But the Zune, what do you think that should have? That's going to have songs more recently, you would think now, right? Because
Well, is the Zune really a thing right now?
But no, all his music is from like the 70s and 80s. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but
like,
you can put old music on your iPod, can you not?
but how come?
No.
So we're
He
saying
won't be able to.
shit.
So
Yeah.
you think it's more
too
music
It doesn't
from?
compute.
90s to 2000.
Yeah.
My thing is, and I don't think they will, because I want to stick with the theme of the classics. But for me, it's a little thing of like, no one has even like a Britney Spears song in there, like something like
No.
that's it. And I hope that
No,
would
we
actually be
don't.
funny
That'd
if
be
it
funny,
popped
yeah.
up in the next movie.
And he,
Classic
what is
music,
this?
and yeah, what is
Skips,
this?
yeah.
And it was like, oops, I did it again. That's gonna happen. I think 100% not Britney Spears, but I think they'll come to a song where it's like, no, and maybe the opening credits of the first movie will be some pop song, and people are like, this is lame, they're doing a pop song for Guardians, and then they'll skip it. I think, I think that joke will happen in Guardians 3. That's gonna happen like 3 years from now. We probably won't remember this, but if you guys remember, you're
The
with us
fans
3
will
years already.
remember.
The fans
They remember everything.
Yeah. I think that's gonna happen.
As for myself, I would say I actually preferred like the Awesome Mix Volume 1 a little bit more. I don't think it was like a huge difference. Like, I think this one was still phenomenal, and I'll definitely listen to it on my own. But I think the first one was a little bit better.
Yeah.
And this could easily be a thing of like, I've only seen the movie once, and they'll grow on me more in the scenes. Because, you know, the songs really connect to like the scenes in the first movie, and that hasn't set in yet, I guess, for this one. I really love the use of like the Guardians theme throughout this movie, because they brought it in like probably 3 or 4 separate times, and every time it was like, I was just getting pumped. Like, I thought they did that like
We always say
phenomenally.
superhero movies, you need more themes. That's why Wonder Woman, that's good, her theme. Black Panther's that little one. Avengers kind of have that, which apparently they bring back for Infinity War. Because the thing is, in Infinity War, the second you hear that Guardians theme, you'll know, oh, here comes Drax, here comes Gamora. So I'm with you. 100%
Well, I'm glad that they're
on
getting
that.
better at that too, because
Yeah.
I just was watching Doctor Strange again the other day, and like I remember like how good the soundtrack is in that movie.
The
And,
tinging and
yeah, and I think they're getting better at like making them distinct. And I think that's something with the Awesome Mix in this one is the first movie, like I don't know if the songs were like more upbeat or something like that, but this one
I think so.
they changed like the tone of the songs
Mhm.
and the way they use them
I
as well.
found, actually, yeah, I think I definitely like the Volume X 1 more, and I found like a lot of the songs from Volume 1 were more, they're very individually recognizable, whereas a
Yeah.
couple of the ones in this one, they sounded similar,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
there were definitely like 2 or 3 ones that I couldn't really distinguish between which one they're doing. It kind of sounded like they were playing like the same song a couple different times, so.
Well, yeah, I do like the like main like Fleetwood song that they picked.
They did. They see. That's my only negative against. I didn't like that they used the same Fleetwood Mac song called "The Chain" twice in the movie. I didn't like they used it once at the beginning, and then they used it at the end when he fought Kurt Russell. I didn't like them using two songs.
I did actually.
Oh really?
I don't know. I think that song like fit perfectly. And
I think it did.
maybe it's because I really like Fleetwood
Yeah.
on my own or something like that, and I was just listening to a record theirs the other day or something. I don't know. That could be it, but I don't know. I liked it. I think it fit both times, and I don't know. It's kind of like a callback, I guess you could say, but
yeah,
I liked it.
Kyle.
For me, I like the Awesome Mix Volume 1 a lot better than this one. Like, there wasn't too many songs. I kind of go back and think, oh, I need to re-listen to this again, or nothing really stands out, as Tyler said earlier. But it's still very good. Like, it's not like I just didn't like it at all, but it just wasn't, like, hitting it home for me, I guess. But I guess it also did a good job of kind of just flowing with what was happening in the movie as well, too, not taking away from, like you're watching The Guardians, not like here's a cool soundtrack to go with The Guardians. So
Are you trying to not take a shot at a certain movie?
Just
no.
take the shot. Take the
Yeah.
shot. You have one shot.
No.
I have to wait until I listen to, because I remember I watched Guardians. I really liked the soundtrack. I bought it and I was on my phone, listened to it countless times. For me, I'm gonna wait till I listen to it. This is either on par or I like it better because of two reasons. One, there's more songs in this movie that I like more separately, like just on their own, than I did in the first one.
Enough, yeah.
And for the first one, I found I get why everyone loves the whole soundtrack. I understand why, but for me, I think that I like the use that I didn't feel there were so many mainstream songs in this, and I felt like the reason people like the first one so much because it's like this collection of just like greatest hit songs. So you have
It's
Jackson
true.
5 sing "I Want You Back" and like "Ain't No Mountain High Enough," and you have the Ooga Chukka song, and there's one other
Escape.
one, Escape, Pina Colada song. That's why I feel like people like that one so much because it's like, it's just kind of like here's like the best of 70s. Where this, I felt like the Fleetwood Mac, I felt like they use more ones like that I personally like, and ones that are not full like, oh, this is gonna be on every best of 70s or 80s hit. So I felt like I like the quality of the songs better. So I have to wait till I hear the whole one and I'll listen to it. But and I love also Mix Volume 1. I'm not trying to take a shot. That was my only thing of saying that. Like, I feel like their songs.
You did listen to it countless times.
I listened to it today actually while I was landscaping.
Oh,
Like
wow.
I think they just had a bit more mainstream songs. And I think that's why people gravitate to that so much. Where this was more, I think, because they are doing a different type of tone with the story. I think they're going for different type of music, so it's not so poppy,
definitely.
knee slappy.
Yeah.
So that's why I like it. I'm gonna wait till I listen to it, because once I listen to it all together, I might not, because it's already on Apple Music. I just didn't want to. It came out like a week ago, and some people are listening to it. I didn't want to listen to it at all until I saw the movies, because the scenes go so well with the music. I didn't want to know what songs were coming up. So yeah. Last thing, the end credit scene. We talked about this on the newscast. There's 5 of them. Tyler, before we get into the specifics, how do you think about being 5? Because we talked about, was this going to be a good thing or a bad thing?
I think they fit them all in really well.
Mhm.
I didn't feel like the scenes are dragging on. Obviously, they had like one right at the start, then they did credits for a bit, showed another one, some more credits, another one, and then like they had like, I obviously didn't get the big reveal with the last one.
Yeah, we'll get
But
into
like
that,
they
yeah.
had the credits finished, and then they did like the big reveal one that like actually had a meaning rather than being like just for fun. It just flowed really well with the credits. At no point was it like, oh wow, this is taking a long time.
Mhm.
So I really enjoyed them. I thought they somehow managed to put 5 scenes in there very well, which I feel like could have been done poorly in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm satisfied with them.
Taylor Field.
Yeah, I'm happy with them. I thought they were all good. I like the comedic twist with some of them, and I like how I don't remember the last Marvel movie where Stan Lee kind of popped up like twice in a movie.
Yeah.
I think this
Where
is
was
the
this first one?
First one.
It's in. They
same
go
scene,
same
the
but
same scene. They go past them quickly, and Stanley's sitting there
When
with the
they're walking.
Watchers, and they just quickly go past, and he's just like, and I don't know how I ended up here. I don't see. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh. I'm gonna butt in. No, I don't know. I said this on the newscast. I said after Dylan would see them, I thought he'd be convinced. I'm convinced that I don't think there need to be 5, because the Watchers scene at the end of Stanley didn't add anything new, and I guess it did for Dylan because you missed the first time they showed Stanley.
Yeah.
So I was taking that out. For me, I thought they were gonna do more story, and it was just more of a joke, which was fine. And then I laughed a lot at the scene. I found it funny, but I don't know if the scene of gargling and the whistle had to be there. I thought it was funny, but it's a thing of 5. So like I liked them all. I wouldn't take them out and say, oh, they're awful, but I didn't love them as much as I thought I was gonna actually. Funny enough.
I think, yeah, for me, like the only none of them really got me hyped, and I guess that's because I don't know the reference, and I guess
You're gonna get hyped.
Yeah, but for me, like this is the last movie from these guys before Infinity War, so I think I was hoping for one to do with that, maybe in some capacity. Like none of these really got me hyped at all, and so
This one I think is very geeky and nerdy because I imagine the first time you saw Avengers, when you saw Thanos turn around, it's like, oh, who's this purple dude, right? I don't think you would know that. Oh, this is gonna lead up something.
fair
Where
enough,
two of those end credit scenes are big things that are gonna lead to something huge.
I really liked the one with Garland actually, because it kind of when Peter Quill gives him the arrow at the end of the film, it's just kind of like, oh, like does this just like have sentimental value to him? And then seeing him sort of taking on that role that that's obviously left open by Yondu. So I think that's I really enjoyed the scene. I thought it was
one
cool.
thing about that
to show that his character might be developed more in the future.
I thought that Finn was like unique, but then he had the same one.
Yeah,
as
it
the
was
other dude.
very little interesting.
Yeah,
scene
I
on
didn't
his
really
head.
understand that part, especially because it looks like it's embedded.
Maybe they're
in
like
the Yondu
manufactured.
I think it's just
I don't know.
It's an implant that people can get, and just people.
But that one was like
That was only a prototype.
That was
yeah.
Yondu.
Yeah. Kyle, what about you in the end credit scenes?
I find that they were all right. I was kind of expecting, like what Travis said, a little bit more from them.
I didn't say that. That was Dylan that said that. I got plenty.
I didn't say it was
Wait a
good. I just
Did Yondu
no one said that.
have the
No one said
fin
that.
on
He
when they
did.
burned him?
He did.
yeah.
Yeah, so he got another one.
That's what I'm talking about. Like that's why
I
like,
thought they like took his and put it on, which now that I think about it,
they
doesn't
could have.
orbit.
They certainly could have.
yeah.
The one prototype, maybe a multiple.
I don't care. I like the scene.
Well, well.
No one
I
said
thought
that, Kyle. No one said
I
that.
heard it.
Quit
But
putting words in my
maybe
mouth. I might have said it. I'm gonna edit it out.
they were good scenes, but I felt like there could have been more to do with the story. I think that's what one of you guys said.
Dylan said it.
Dylan said.
Yeah.
Oh,
He
okay.
did say
I mean, in a roundabout way, I sort of said
He might have said it.
All right. The whole
Well, edit
the
it in
stat-
after this
that.
conversation.
Kyle's sick of all
That'll be
this.
really confusing.
yeah, it's fine. It's
It's not fine.
the Stan Lee like second cameo. I felt like wasn't really needed at all.
Mm-hmm.
Even I feel like if they could have the Easter egg that they should have done, well, what I think they should have done is that blue gulp that they had
Yeah.
on the planet.
Gulp.
That would have been connected to the actual Avengers of like
Having
seeing a
like people
newscast.
coming on to it and like.
But I think it doesn't happen because we brought up that time issue. We don't know when the fuck that
But
happens right now.
Here, I'll counter you with this. It says 34 years later, or 34 years later of what in the movie?
I mean, just 30 years later.
No,
not
I said
30.
It was
34.
34 from.
No,
what,
I think there's
1988?
34 of when Kurt Russell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Which
So-
was 1988.
which
Means
was
that
specifically
this
1988.
Yeah, because the opening says
So Peter Quill is 34
1988.
or whatever.
Or maybe
Yeah.
that 1988 might be from the first film, which I.
So are you trying to say that
thought
both
earlier
Guardians
today.
film may take place?
Before
You mean after Civil War? So the
There's a
blue
chance
coat-
they
no,
do.
Because if they do before our
yeah,
problem is
after
that-
Civil-
yeah,
after Civil
yeah,
War,
when
yeah.
we stuff we haven't
Yeah.
seen. That's
Yeah.
okay.
That-
They
that's-
could spin it off that way. It doesn't make sense the way they're saying, like the way they release, but they can say that.
well,
To
the thing is that
make
they
it
don't
work.
really like link back to Earth other than just the birth.
True.
So that's why I think this timeline that they could do that. And so if they would have just, let's say for the sake of argument that they did go through that direction of like this is after Civil War, that they could have used something else, kind of just give you more of an Easter
They
egg.
could have had Ant-Man as Giant Man vacuuming it up. That would have been cool.
I could saw
That'd
someone in
been
the
awful.
boardroom being like, "But this doesn't take place." Well, you know what? Guardians is now going to take place after Civil War. After it's all going to make sense.
I mean, to be fair, they could go through like a dimensional
specifically
portal
that
and just end up
Guardians took
anytime
place
this time.
before.
Mm.
Was there any like a?
I don't know that.
actual
I just know
statement
that Guardians
of
2
when
took
Guardians
place.
1 takes place.
There could have been, but I don't know off the top of my head. All I knew is that Guardians Volume 2 took place 3 months after
Yeah.
Guardians 1. I just assumed it took place at the same time. But Doctor Strange,
I was about to say.
a lot of it but a lot of the first half of Doctor Strange all takes place like around like Iron Man 2 time. Like it's like years before Civil War.
Mhm.
Because remember, he's like hurt for so many years, so there's probably they'll make it sense. They'll say one line and be like, "Oh, okay."
But
Or they won't all be like,
Anyways,
Yeah. You
I
get
have
them all
faith
again.
in
You've
Yeah.
done well enough for the past 10 years. We'll give you a
Yeah.
break in this room.
Just one.
But I feel like if you're watching, hoping for the end credits, going to give you a lot of Easter eggs. It doesn't. It kind of just makes it more fun.
I think it depends who you are.
Yeah, for me, like I'm not invested into like the whole.
You haven't read the comics.
I haven't read the
Yeah.
comics, so I don't know any of these characters or like what's expected to come. Well,
Give yourself some credit. You know these characters.
oh, I know the character, but
Not
not
the
like,
newer ones.
Not the newer
yeah.
ones. So,
Not he doesn't know who Adam Warlock is.
Oh, I'm just messing.
Yeah, that Adam thing was like.
so like to go back to like that's kind of
It's
just
a
all we
reference to
have.
the
It's just that
ticket
last
buying
one
company.
though. But the other 4 that we watched, there was like kind of just more for fun and kind of laughs than anything else.
Yeah.
All right, what's the secrets?
So I'll go down them one. There's the arrow scene that happened. Cool. Second one was with Sly, who we haven't talked about. So Sylvester Stallone makes a cameo in this movie, a few scenes. He's playing
right.
Starhawk. The people that he was assembling, Starhawk. Which after I saw Rocket, this whole movie, I was like, man, we're so close to a Star Fox movie. I could see it. Like the CGI is so great. I'm like, we're getting close. Disney, just buy them. Find a way.
That would be a crossover.
I'd be so down.
That scene, the second scene with Sylvester Stallone,
Yes.
when he was talking to like the different Ravagers. The one Ravager, the last one he talked to was Red. He did like this hand thing that looked exactly like Doctor Strange. Kind of.
I don't think it's supposed to be the
It's
same
just magic.
character.
Oh, because
I think
he did that
he-
conjuring kind of thing that Doctor Strange does.
I think he used
He looked like Zenyatta.
technology.
it was technology. 'Cause
Like,
he-
electronic
that, Taylor.
technology.
just the way
I
he
guess.
moved his hands, it looked just like the ancient one. The way he did that, and then I conjured up these two.
A lot of people have
symbols.
done this. You're doing it right now. You
And it
can do
was
it.
the
Two
same
symbols,
color.
right?
Friend
Thumbs
did
up.
it.
It was the same color and everything. It looked the exact same detail that the ancient one did from Doctor Strange.
But there weren't like the circles and stuff that the Strange. I think it was just because his race doesn't have some sort of vocal cords that we can use.
But wouldn't that-
understand? So he's
I
just like-
understand you, Taylor. I see where you're
Thank
going.
you.
I
see
can
where
look
you're
into
coming
it for
from.
the
It would be
future.
cool to
Yeah,
tie I see where you're coming from, but I think
I don't think they need to tie into the Sorcerer Supremes. Also, I don't know that much about those certain characters.
Well, it's
those
not tying
characters
in the
from the
Sorcerer
60s.
Supreme. It's just showing that like humans aren't the only ones that can tap into that, because it's Doctor Strange can connect with Guardians of the Galaxy in that sense, where there's other beings out there that can travel like different dimensions or just access that kind of
Maybe he has an Infinity
thing.
Stone.
I think Doctor Strange kind of already did that. The ending of the movie, the Dorm movie, he's just a big fucking.
Yeah, but there's other.
But that's
it's
the
cool
guy
to
who's not
see it from-
human.
It's cool to see other equivalent to humans doing that kind of thing.
I see.
Nice try.
Anyway, Sylvester Stallone, he's playing Starhawk. He's one of the OG members of the original Guardians of the Galaxy. All those people he's talking to at the end there are like the comic book OG Guardians of the Galaxy, the very ones that took place in the 70s. I don't know how much they're going to have a role in the future. I think Sylvester Stallone will. I think that was another like sovereign setup, like he'll be back. I don't know about those guys. Obviously, they're not going to call them the Guardians of the Galaxy, but that was for historical preference. That's the OG team.
Cool.
So there's that one. I think they're just going to play a role in 3 at some point. They could even be the opposing factor. Who knows? Because there was that one. There was that one. What was the other? There was one more
Howard the
comedic
Duck?
one. No, Howard the Duck was in the middle of the movie. He wasn't in the
Yeah.
end credit. He was just saying it sucks.
Wasn't there?
like a
There's
duck.
something in post.
Howard the Duck
Yeah.
was in the bar.
Yeah,
On
which
the-
I love. I need him to join.
Oh, I
the
think
team.
he was like in the credits or something. I don't know.
No, there's pictures and the answers because you asked about him before. He is actually a character from Marvel Comics. He is Howard the Duck. There's
Him and Rocket team up.
I want him in the Rocket Groot movie.
And the dog. What dog? What's the name of the dog?
I think his name is Astro. I think Astro the dog. I'll look up in a second. I think it's Astro. But Howard the
The
Duck is
bulldog guy. What's his name?
the bulldog guy.
Isn't there a bulldog character?
Bulldog. Yeah, I thought you were talking about. I was talking about that guy at the end with it's the dog with the space suit. I think it's it's not Astro. I don't know. I'll look after.
Lame.
But Howard the Duck, he was in some points he's like an investigator on Earth, and he like is a crime detective and stuff like that. Funny enough, there's a very, very bad movie you could watch that they made in the 80s that George Lucas directed. It's called Howard the Duck. I think he directed it. He had a director produced it, but yeah, it's Howard the Duck. It's hailed as one of the worst movies ever. So that's why I said tomorrow, if you have free time, Tyler, you could you learn all about Howard the Duck. But I want to see more of that.
You're not selling it that well.
No, it's bad, but it's a fun. Maybe watch it with some people. It's a good bad watch. What was the third one? There was the Whistle. There was Guardian. There was Sly.
Groot's bedroom.
Who?
Groot.
Groot's bedroom. Yeah, that was
Teenager.
fun. Yeah, that was a good little like teenage Groot. Obviously, he's growing up by the time we get to war. The fourth one is of Aisha. She's known also as Her. The person that's in that little tank tube is her brother, him, which is Adam Warlock. It's kind of like a biblical him, her sort of thing. Adam Warlock. They've said he's not in Infinity War. He'll be in Guardians 3, but I still think there's a chance he's in Avengers 4, not Infinity War, because he has a huge role in Infinity Gauntlet. He has a huge role. He's kind of like one of these, like, he's on the level, him and Strange and Silver Surfer talk a lot there. He's like one of those, another guy that's looking over the realm of Earth. Not the stuff in Earth, he's very much Doctor Strange.
Okay.
He's gold, he has this cool blonde hair, his blue and black cape. He looks very cool. He's known as maybe one of the most powerful beings of all time. He's a really, really cool character. I've really liked him. It's just the look when I saw him as a kid, but he's very, very cool because he's a guy that has all this power and doesn't exactly know what to do, but people always look to him like, well, you have all this power, like, you gotta know. And it's not like Doctor Strange where he had to learn it. Like, he's born with it. He's like the Sovereign, but he's much more powerful. So that's what that is. He's going to be a big character down the line. And in the middle of the film, at the end of the film, is Stanley, the Watchers. The Watchers are, and people have speculated forever, and this is what they could be doing, that Stanley this whole time has been a Watcher. The Watchers are these very immortal, powerful beings that do not do anything unless it gets very dire need. They don't get involved in any of the planets and the universes. Their job is to be up in the sky in the universe and write down everything that happens and watch everything and have like a Bible of what's happened to Earth, what's happened to nowhere, what's happened to all this. So that's their job. They're pretty much just gods or angels. That's what they are. And they've gone involved a very few times in Marvels, but their job is not to get involved. They're just supposed to watch. And that's why lots of people have made the joke that that's how Stanley can pop up in Deadpool. That's how they can do that, because they could say he's a Watcher and they can travel universes. So they're very powerful. They're like I said, this level of gods that you would have to talk to. Lots of times it'll be the very first time I was introduced that there's a problem. It was very earth ending, and the Avengers went to them for help. And they're like, sorry, we know the world might end, but we can't help. And they're like, well, if the world ends, that means you're gonna die. And they said, well, we still can't help. So like they're very like almost like monks in a way, like supernatural monks, and they play a big role later on. I think they'll play a big role with Thanos, and it has a lot more to do with stuff in the future. So it's a big turning point for we've heard them getting very cosmic. They're about to get very, very cosmic with stuff like this. They have ties to Doctor Doom. They got ties to why the fuck am I forgetting his name? Oh my god, no.
Oh my god.
Oh, big purple guy. I'm so mad.
Thanos?
Not Thanos. He's the eater of worlds. Oh my god, I'm sort of losing all. Galactus, thank you. Yeah, I lost that. Thank you.
Whoa.
Man knows what's up. Whatever.
You can now hold that over him.
I remember all this stuff. Galactus is with Fox right now, but Eagle was with Fox originally, and they traded, funny enough, it's so weird. They traded Negasonic Teenage Warhead Marvel to get Ego for Deadpool, so they had to swap. And I feel like they got the better deal with Ego, and they made it bigger. So I feel like they could do that. So the Watchers set up a lot more, I think, to do with like Doctor Strange, Guardians, all those cosmic stuff. I can't believe I fucking forgot Galactus. But yeah, if you want to see him in Fantastic Four, he's just a big fucking cloud, and it's awful. Like they built him the whole movie, and he's just a cloud. No, the old ones. They're like, oh, Galactus is coming, and then they show him he's just a cloud with thunder in him, and it's like, oh, he's coming to Canada.
But would he also eat the planet?
What? Well, he's in the comics of Pulp Picture. He's literally a gigantic man with like this huge antenna thing. Like he's like a god. He's kind of like a celestial.
So there's no reason to make him a giant purple cloud.
No, and he looks so much cooler than So, anything you guys wanted to say about any of those or any questions?
I don't think I have any questions.
No.
You did a pretty good job there of highlighting what was going on.
Don't feel lost. The movie really described everything that you needed to know, and you didn't really feel out of the loop for some people who are not really invested into this comic book version of each character and what they mean. But the movie itself took every character that we know of and really fleshed them out. And I think Marvel did a really good job, and they should pat themselves on the back.
Yeah, I was gonna say, other than just the end credit scene, I feel like it was pretty by numbers of like you could follow along.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is literally what he looks like, this guy. He's fucking massive.
He's pretty large.
Yeah, and he can get bigger for people that don't know, but you have internet, you can look him up, so.
No, you can expand the image size.
What?
No.
True, or they could just search
No, he can't.
Fantastic Four or Galactus, so, Anything else we want to talk about before we get our overall rating or our final score?
Negative.
Cosmo was the fucking dog's name. I was close. Astro Cosmo.
Not
Yeah.
that close.
I want to see.
Many different levels.
It ended in O. I was close enough.
True. You're
Maybe I'm gonna start with
right.
the C.
You sure Astro ends in O?
Yeah, it does. So I want to see that Animal Marvel movie. Lockjaw, Cosmo, Rocket, Howard the Duck. You know, they can make anything at this
Well,
point.
Disney has that Born in China movie coming out. It could be a sequel.
Born in space. I don't know. Tyler, what's your rating overall? Well, your overall thoughts and a rating, if you want to give it a rating, because some people don't on this cast, but you know.
Some people don't.
Look at you.
Look at me.
A good 9.
A good, not a bad
Yeah,
9.
no,
Not
sir.
a all right 9.
I mean, a bad 9's still a 9.
Like
Yeah,
good as
but-
in like good-hearted or like well done good. It's a big distinction, honestly. Or you could say a good 9.
We'll just for your sake, we'll do a well done 9.
Well done 9.
Okay.
Taylor Field.
I'm gonna do a 9.8.
Oh.
It just because I like the first one a little 0.2% better.
Mm.
And that movie is a 10 out of 10 for you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Volume 1 is a 10 out of 10.
I definitely like this one more than the first one.
Really.
Dilmas.
For me, I would not quite a perfect movie, but I haven't ranked all my favorite comic book movies like you guys have, but I would say this is probably like right off the top, like probably top 5, if not better. Like I absolutely love this movie. I can't wait to watch it again.
Osman.
For myself, I'll put it at 9.5. I still really liked it. I thought it was a really good movie, kind of just going in a different direction that, that most sequels kind of just repeat themselves. And so I have the reason why I'm not going to give it a 10 because I still like the first one better.
Mhm.
And it's not, and I feel like a warranted 10 is like Civil War when we went to go watch that. It's like a lot of big things were happening. Like this, a lot of big things happened, but it's a lot of more of character building and I think more of a storyline. It was better, but than like an action-packed film with everything as well too.
Yeah, no, like I said, for myself, the first one for me is just a 10 because, like I said, maybe Ronin, there's minor things, but when everything else is so good, you can look past that, or even then it's like, it's not even that negative enough to bring down the score at all for my overall enjoyment. For me, I can't say this is better than the first one, but for me, it matches it, so that's why I kind of have to give it a 10. I hate doing that because I've given Lego Batman 1, I've given Lego 1, I just feel like I'm giving out 10s. I feel like
There'll be some fantastic movies.
But that's the thing, I can't hate because like the movies are they're just delivering this year, and that's why for me, like I feel like I don't think it could be better than Guardians 1 for me, just because I felt like it did different stuff. There's reasons I like Guardians 1 better than this, and there's reasons I like this better than Guardians, or I like Guardians 2 better than Guardians 1. Like I like them equal amount for different reasons. So love this movie. I am shocked that I love this movie. I was so ready to get disappointed, especially because we haven't really had that big of a disappointment this year. Even with Kong, I was like, oh, I'm ready to be disappointed. There's not been a movie yet where I've been uber hyped yet and disappointed. I thought this was going to be the one. It wasn't. Crazy. Good year.
DC will probably do that for us.
Yeah, Wonder Woman's next month. So
I hope not.
if Wonder Woman can be great,
can do well, though.
if Wonder
We've
Woman
said
can
that before.
If Wonder Woman can be great, this is going to be the greatest comic book year of all time. Like, already Lego Batman, Logan, Guardians.
Oh my gosh.
What do you guys think about it? Taylor, where could they tell us what they thought about this?
Well, when they go through their 700 jumps, they can find us.
That was good.
That was.
I liked it, but I didn't like that they went back to a second time when they were showing the faces. But I liked the face. At first, I didn't think I was going to like it, and then I was like, oh, you got me.
700 jumps.
700 jumps. We recommend 50 at a time. That's the going.
No,
now.
he said
50 is still
he
stressful.
said 50 was too much, and then he's like, damn, we're going to 700.
Oh,
And
okay.
like,
Well, make sure you limit yourself. But go straight to 700 if you feel like taking a risk, and you'll find us in the search bar.
I feel like
Type
taking
in
a risk.
GeekVerse Space Podcast. And you have our Facebook. There's tons of awesome content, including this awesome review with an awesome new photo header that Travis and Ruben had pieced together, which is
Well, that would be a
fantastic.
thumbnail. Photo header is
Thumbnail.
like what you made for that's at GeekVerse
Well,
Podcast.
shout outs to myself then. and
Nice.
but especially to Travis and Ruben, that photo is awesome. All of us,
It's one of my favorites.
Guardian crew posted up there. Pretty cool.
Mhm.
Love it.
Go to GeekVersePodcast.com where you can find Facebook, you can find Twitter, all our social media, so you can keep up on updates and everything like that. Video services such as Twitch and YouTube, which you're watching us now. Check out right now. There's a new GeekVerse Gauntlet Season 1 League. Well, we're doing a league now. That Season 1 premiere is here. It's Taylor versus mystery opponent, where I'm not going to reveal or spoil it yet, but it is a great match. It is. I actually rewatched it again this week. There's another match coming up.
Good fun for the whole family.
Yeah, it is one of the closest matches I've ever seen just in any game. So lots of fun. In a couple weeks, I'm versing Dylan for a title.
Mm-hmm.
By the time you watch this, check on Patreon. It'll be up there early where you can find a bunch of other stuff. You can find Gauntlet matches. You can find Spider-Man Retrospective that us three, Dylan, Kyle, myself
If
do.
you do go in there and get the early stuff, don't spoil it.
Don't spoil it, yeah.
Don't be that guy.
If you spoil it, I will delete your comment.
Has that happened yet?
Not yet, but I know it's going to happen, especially because him and I have a title match coming up, so I could see some little fucker paying the $5.
Travis
the $5
Smells,
is worth
for example.
Yeah, Travis Smells. The $5 is worth the content because it is quality content. But podcast services, SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, Podbay.fm is back up. I checked on it.
Oh,
It's back running, so hit us with
There
those.
must have been a storm.
Yeah. Start laying those bricks. But, yeah. What's next? Next week, who knows? Could be a King Arthur review. Might be some news, something like that. We got Alien coming up. All the big movies coming up. Alien, Pirates, Wonder Woman.
Yes.
We're reviewing it. Spider-Man, we're here. Subscribe and like us because we're just generally good people. You know, if you like the Guardians of the Galaxy, you're going to like us. You know,
We're the same, one and the same.
some people would say they base those movies off of us.
I actually did the mocap for Rocket. Fun fact.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're also Kirkland. Or
What?
whatever his name is. Finn Dude
Yon Dude
2.0.
is-
Kirkland, he's actually a member of the GeekVerse
Yeah.
podcast. He's not in,
Actually, no.
he's not in Guardians.
Dylan mocaps him as well on our podcast. He does that.
I mocap Kirkland, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, it's never boring. We'll see you next week. Promise you will not be boring.
GeekVerse out.
What did you say, Taylor?
Later.
I said bye-bye.